Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to episode 41 of Super Kaiju Binge. Today, joined by Seanie Boy, thankfully.
Hello, everyone. Daddy's home. Cake every night. That was the last movie, but I had to say it here. But yes, we are here to talk about Godzilla King of the Monsters, which I don't know if you could tell, Nick, but I really seem to like this movie.
Today, me and Seanie Boy will be discussing the modern kaiju masterpiece that is 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters, directed by Michael Dougherty of Krampus fame and
Trick or Treat,
of which both movies suck ass.
Whoa! Trick or Treat is fucking awesome.
Nah.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into our personal history. Seanie Boy, go right ahead.
Man, where do we even start with this thing? Well, obviously 2014 came out, and I was really excited about that. That one came out to be a pretty solid hit, and they were announcing that they were going to do a second movie. Gareth Edwards obviously didn't come back, although I am intrigued to know what he would have done. He probably would have tweaked a little bit from the first movie, probably like understanding some of the reception. I think originally, the second Godzilla movie was supposed to have Mechagodzilla in it, was the original pitch. But obviously they saved that for Godzilla versus Kong. But I would have been curious to see what Gareth Edwards did with that. So obviously this movie was announced at Comic-Con, and then they announced they're going to bring in Mothra, Rodan, King Ghidorah, and then of course we had the news of a new King Kong movie, and we were left wondering, are they going to bring these two franchises together? And obviously in 2015, they made the official announcement that they were going to converge, like that Skull Island or the Kong movie got moved from Universal to Warner Brothers, and we were going to get a shared universe between Godzilla and Kong. And I remember like reading that when I was, I think it was at like college campus or something, and I saw the news, and like I just like dropped my phone, like basically it was like, holy shit, it's happening! Holy fucking shit, it's fucking happening! And I was like, oh my god, we're gonna get Rodan, we're gonna get Mothra, we're gonna get Ghidorah, we're gonna get Kong, we're finally gonna get the rematch that we've been waiting for since like my whole life, basically. Like the enthusiasm and excitement was just like at an all-time high. And then of course in 2017 we had Kong Skull Island, and I remember the post-credit scene came out for that. I actually saw the post-credit scene before the movie because it leaked online, because I was like excited, like I couldn't like keep my patience in check because I was too much anticipating Godzilla 2. And then obviously it was announced as Godzilla King of the Monsters. And then I remember doing a reaction to the Comic-Con trailer, and the trailer just blew me away. It was because I was really excited when Mike Dougherty was announced, because Trick or Treat is one of my favorite movies to watch on Halloween. I like Krampus as well, but I think Trick or Treat's better. Ignore the man with the thumbs down. I fucking love Trick or Treat, so he can eat shit. But anyway, so King of the Monsters was announced. It's like, yes, Mike Dougherty's making this thing. And then the first trailer came out at Comic-Con, and that was to me the trailer that won Comic-Con 2018. And everyone, I think, just kind of agrees, like, then you had like this beautiful mix of like classical music and the eye-popping, wonderful, like dreamlike visuals of the film. They blasted Claire de Lune, and it was just as soon as like Godzilla comes out of the water, breathes atomic breath, we have that great shot right there in the air, and then you hear Claire de Lune playing, and I'm like, this is one of the most beautiful trailers ever like put to film.
And then this movie's got some bitchin' trailers.
This movie, like the posters were so good, the trailers were so good. The second trailer, I think, I wish they kind of would have taken out the second trailer, because that's the only trailer that's kind of so. It's not the music, because the first trailer uses Claire de Lune.
Is that the one that ends with Godzilla charging at Ghidorah?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the weakest.
That was my favorite trailer.
That's the weakest of the trailers, because then the third one uses some
trailer. The music in that one really rocks my world. Like, it feels big and foreboding and bombastic. That one really
no, because like the third trailer still has Godzilla and Ghidorah colliding, but it has Somewhere Over the Rainbow playing. It's like do.
Oh, okay.
I think you're, because the second trailer is the more forgettable one. It's Madison when she's like, I'm trying to reach Monarch.
Yeah, that's the one I like the best.
That's the one I like the least out of all the MonsterVerse trailers. That's my least favorite one. But the first trailer was so visually stunning. It just wowed me. Like it was spectacular. And of course, this is also the time period when you and I started really talking, and then Nick with Ryan and Jack and all that, and then we were all kind of getting into the hype mode. It was really fun because we were all like getting really excited. We were like jumping on each other's streams and stuff, like just hyping up the movie. Every little teaser spot. I mean, they had like just everything about this movie was just looking great. Bear McCreary was announced. Then they had little teases of the movie coming out. They like sampled some of the score. And as soon as I heard those remixes of the Fukube themes, I'm like, I know I'm going to love the shit out of this movie.
I'm sold.
This is, I know we're not getting to pros and cons just yet, but I'm just going to say Bear McCreary's score is up there. Like it's maybe the best Godzilla score of all time. I like taking an old, possibly. It's really hard to say because it kind of depends on the mood and it changes from time to time. But the updating the classic themes, the new stuff that he incorporates into the music, it's all wonderful. Like this is a movie clearly made by somebody who loves Godzilla. Although I've been kind of hearing that Doherty was apparently like from somebody who was saying like, oh yeah, he's like the least out of the 4 directors, he wasn't the biggest fan. Out of the 4, like he was kind of near this. But I'm like, I don't know. It just seemed like he had the most love and passion.
That way.
It doesn't feel that way with the movie in general. So I don't know about that one, but I really, really just got so anticipated with this movie. I saw this movie like 5 times in theaters. But the only unfortunate thing was a lot of stuff did get leaked early on for this thing. And I feel like I would have had like more of the surprises. And obviously what happens at the end is just, I mean, I have the figure over there. It's Burning Godzilla, or Fire Godzilla, or whatever definition they want to go with. When that came on screen, I was like, oh, but I just kind of wish that. So my hype kind of hurt some of like the movie for me because like I couldn't stop looking up stuff for the movie. You know what I mean? Where you're just too excited, like you need it now. And then obviously things got spoiled for me, and even in like fashions that I didn't really like expect, like just kind of looking at stuff, like you're just like, you know how YouTube sometimes recommends stuff and then it's just there and you just see the frame in the video, you're like, God damn it.
I've learned to ignore that stuff a long time ago, but I do know what you're talking about. So hold on, let me get my 2 cents in too. So Godzilla King of the Monsters was hands down my most anticipated movie of 2019.
Same here.
And as soon as I heard that a sequel was announced, I was like, okay, gimme. I don't care what it is, just gimme. I was one of those people that was asking, okay, I don't really care what you do, just show more Godzilla and give us more monster action, then I'll be happy.
Yes.
I tried to keep away from spoilers and try to keep away from news regarding this movie. The stuff that was revealed when Kong Skull Island came out, of course, I knew about that in the snap of the finger. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I know enough. I'm still going to keep my nose out of it. And then the trailers started dropping. The first one dropped. I was doing a job with my uncle, whom I had just met for the first time. And I think it was either you or Ryan who sent me a link, or maybe it was Jackie Boy sent me the link to the first trailer for King of the Monsters. I was sitting on the side of a curb, just watching on my phone. I was like,
I had my reaction video on the channel because like it was Comic-Con day, and my friend Steve and I were just like, if I can find, I'll send a link to it in the chat so people can check it out. But it was so good.
And as soon as it was over with Godzilla roaring to the skies, I got chills. It was 95 degrees out that day, and I got chills. So, and the first trailer dropped like what, 10 months before the film came out?
Yeah, it kind of, I think it came out a little bit too early. I think the movie was supposed to come out in March, though, was the thing, and then they delayed it to May.
But still,
but it's like I think March is the best release date for the MonsterVerse at this point because that seems to be where they had the most success, except in 2014's case, which 2014 still made the most domestically, and then GVK probably would have made even more if it weren't for the circumstances. Yes, the COVID circumstances, but it still like did well enough. Like this movie still made profit, obviously.
Hold on. I know you got a lot to say. I have a lot to say about it too. Just let me just bear with me. All right. So This was right before I met Meadow for the first time when that first trailer dropped. So she and I got together, and of course, I was still really into Godzilla movies at this point. And I showed her the second trailer not long after it dropped. And I asked her, would you be at all interested in checking this out? And she said, yeah, this looks kind of cool. She was intrigued because Millie Bobby Brown is in this
Oh
movie,
yes, that's
and
right. This is
she
the
is a
Stranger Things.
huge fan of Stranger Things. So as soon as I mentioned to her, hey, Millie Bobby Brown is in this, she was intrigued. So hang on, when was it? May 31st. Okay. So yeah, May 31st. Me and Meadow went to go see this in theaters. This honestly was one of the biggest highlights of 2019 for her and I, especially considering not long after this was when her and I entered some severe financial turmoil. So this was the last like big hurrah thing for her and I to do before hard times fell upon us. So I look back on that fondly. I was like, huh, that was a nice last thing that we had before shit hit the fan. But leading up to its release, Meadow kept kind of teasing me and saying, what if it sucks? I kept telling her, quiet. It is not going to suck. If it does, I will lose all faith in humanity.
I mean, you could. It's this. If you ever want to get Nick mad, just say like something he's anticipating. He's like, "Hey Nick, what if it sucks?" And he just gets so mad. He's like, "Shut up, fuck you." It's like when I was saying Avatar 2. Hey Nick, Avatar 2 is gonna suck.
Hey, boy, zip
Have you
your
even
lip.
seen the movie yet?
Boy, zip your lip.
Did you even see the movie
So
yet, or
her
no?
and I dressed for
Okay.
the occasion, and we went to see King of the Monsters in theaters. Oh yeah, me too. Of
Yes,
course.
this is one I actually want. So, fun fact: I did win a contest on Twitter for Legendary. So they sent me two shirts. I had a Godzilla vs Mechagodzilla one, and then this one. So that was pretty cool.
2 hours and 12 minutes later, I came out of the theater a
And
changed man.
he literally came out of the theater
Uh-huh. All over the place.
all over the place.
Unashamedly. This
Do not take
movie
a black light to that theater.
rocked my fucking world. It exceeded all of my expectations 10 times over. I loved this movie. And I kept track of when this movie would have been released on DVD. And you damn right, I ran out and bought it as soon as it dropped on day one. And rewatched it again. Loved it even more. I have watched this movie now 7 times. Godzilla King of the Monsters is a fucking masterpiece. I could not have asked for a better American Godzilla movie or just overall Godzilla film in general. This movie blows my fucking mind every time I see it. Anything and everything that this movie does, I am on board 150%. This movie greatly impressed me, and it instantly became a massive favorite, both Godzilla movie and movie in general, like of all time. If you remember in my top 100 favorite films list, Godzilla King of the Monsters ranks in at number 3. I love the fuck out of this movie. So, a little bit of a quick, funny disclaimer. So I rewatched this movie last night with my friend Victoria, who spoiled the fuck out of me with a whole bunch of movies and shows for my birthday coming up soon. And after this movie was over, we decided to watch Godzilla Final Wars. I can now definitively say it is now a tie between King of the Monsters and Final Wars as my two favorite Godzilla movies. I love them both for equally similar and different reasons. This movie is fucking special. With all that being said, you got anything else to say, Seanie Boy?
I don't know, Nick. I feel like we'll just have to kind of get into like the plot and discussing all sorts of things. Then more stuff will pique my interest. But yeah, I saw this movie 5 times in theaters. I think it was
Only
five
once for
times.
me. I wanted to see it more, but
IMAX stuff. Went with my dad, my uncle. Then I went with some friends. I think I went with my friend again, like later on, like the next day or something. I went on my own. I think I saw it either 4 or
hold
5
on.
times. And then of
Hold
course
on.
my favorite was getting to take my nephew to go see it because like he was just the right amount of age when this thing came out. I could just having the experience there. It was like my older sister, and then my brother-in-law were in town, and then my niece and nephew were, but my niece didn't get to go, but my nephew got to go. Getting to take him to see Godzilla on the big screen, and then just having those epic moments right there, and just having a really good time seeing like a character I grew up loving treated with absolute love and respect. Like this is like a Toho. This is like a classic Godzilla film, just kind of brought to life, like with the fan service up the wazoo.
Hold on.
So many
Let's
nods
not
and
get
Easter
to
eggs.
that.
But like I said, I'm just telling you about the experience, Nick. I have to like gloat about it. I'm ready to get
We
down on
will
my knees
gloat
and start
about it.
praising
We'll
this
do that
movie.
with our pros. So real quick, so Godzilla King of the Monsters is a 2019 American monster movie co-written and directed by Michael Dougherty. The film was released May 31st, 2019, to sadly mixed reviews from critics, with praise for its visual effects, action sequences, cinematography, and music score, but with criticism to the plot, pacing, tone, and characters. It sadly was a massive box office disappointment,
Oh, because
grossing
not flop, it still made profit, and it
grossing
actually
386 million worldwide against a budget between 170 to 200 million. I do know that it still made money due to streaming and like home video and such, but this movie did underperform. And you want to know why? It's because Avengers
fucking Aladdin.
Endgame, that piece of shit movie, came out the year before or the month before.
And Aladdin came out as well. See, if Godzilla would have came out maybe in August, I think it would have done a lot better. Like take the release date of something like the Meg did, and just kind of like end of the summer type deal. It's just kind of unfortunate. I'm like, man, I really, really like this movie. But the thing with King of the Monsters though is it drew more of an audience on home video. It's kind of one of those things where a lot of people didn't see it in theaters, ended up really enjoying it on streaming,
Sadly.
and yeah, that's true. But I mean, this thing still like is a really well liked. I feel like it's still more well liked now than it was. Well, I don't know. The Godzilla fandom changes its opinion on movies all the time,
Yeah,
as we
that's
know.
true.
It's
It
true.
just
Like it could,
is unfortunate that this movie could have made more money, but unfortunately, it was released during an extremely crowded year.
mm-hmm.
But like with what Anthony Sarkis is saying, I have seen people hate this movie,
Right.
say it's one of the biggest disappointments of the entire franchise. And like with what Anthony Sarkis is here saying, this is going to make me sound very fanboyish, but I really don't give a fuck. I refuse to acknowledge the very existence of people who dislike this movie. This is one of those cases where so much went into this. How can you hate this movie? Seriously, how?
I can see why there'd be some nitpicks in that, and it's
I
not for
understand some
everyone.
nitpicks, but I've seen some people say this is one of the worst Godzilla movies in the entire franchise. That is just ridiculous to me.
Well, I'll say this though. I think like I said, the Godzilla fan base. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of people within it, obviously, and I generally like the fan base overall. But there can be a bit of a snootiness at times, of like looking down on people who like certain Godzilla films, or dislike others. It's the smelling your own fart syndrome. It's like South Park Showcase, like that episode, the smug episode, where it's like, hey, what's go? They're all driving their hybrid cars, and then they just fart and they just sniff their farts, like. yeah, and they're like, good for you, man. They're just so high on themselves, and it's just like the smugness and kind of pretentiousness. That's kind of what I get with some people within the fan base, where it's just like, oh, you like that thing, you're the worst thing in existence. Like
And
I've
Star
seen
Wars.
I've seen that too, but like I said, if somebody likes it, that's great. If they don't like it, oh well, I still like the movie. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what matters to me. I am bummed it didn't do as well as it did initially, but like I said, it still like made profit. We still
I
are getting more
remember.
MonsterVerse stuff, and I
Yeah,
was just like, you know, it's still a movie I love. Okay, like I don't have to love things that or I mean, I love things that not everybody loves, right? So at the end of the day, it's what I want, right? It's the most important person to please is
I do
myself.
remember though during a stream that you and Ryan did. I think it was before me and Meadow saw Halloween 2018 in theaters. You two were predicting that this movie would have broke 1 billion.
Yeah, I mean,
I
the
remember
trailer was
those
so
words.
okay. Well, like I said, it just felt like it because the trailer was so hyped, right? And I figured, okay, monster movies should do well. I mean, if like all three, I mean, Jurassic Park has like more of a built-in fan base, but Jurassic World Dominion made $1 billion. Um,
Because it's a
all
good
things are
movie.
possible. What's that?
Because it's a good movie.
Not really.
Moving on. All
But
righty.
anyways, like I figured like the creature feature phase would have done better for this thing, but it's kind of unfortunate because like some things that I don't understand make billions, like $1 billion end up making 1 billion. But I don't know. Maybe it's just because I lived in my own little like giddy fanboy moment, but it just felt like a movie that would have seemingly had more mass appeal than it did. I'm like, okay, would have made a huge in China, and again, it did very well. Godzilla vs Kong did really well. I think the next film will probably be the highest grossing. I'm going to put money on that right now. I think the next film will be worldwide the highest grossing because Godzilla vs Kong obviously came out at a specific time, but it was the most streamed movie of 2021 going into 2022. Like that's just a fact. Also the most pirated movie as well. But
Okay,
yeah,
hold on. So, 23 minutes into this review.
we haven't even started. This is gonna go all night, folks, because like
Yeah,
once we get started talking about this one, like I like 2014, but this one I like
I like
more.
this one a lot more.
I like this. There's some things that
Well, with all
2014
that
does do
being
better,
said,
like the suspense and like the build up to moments.
word has been spoken. Sadly, I have no donuts.
I know. Oh yeah, that was last week.
Let's jump into the plot of Godzilla King of the Monsters. 5 years after the existence of giant monsters known as Titans was revealed to the world, Dr. Emma Russell, played by Vera Farmiga, a
From
paleobiologist
Bates
working for
Motel
the
and Conjuring. Just had
yep,
to bring that up.
working for the Titan studying organization Monarch, and her daughter Madison, played by Millie Bobby Brown, who played, of course, Elle in Stranger Things.
Great in the first few seasons, or the first two seasons. Not very good in season 3 and the start of season 4. Quite insufferable, but gets better at the end of season 4. But I just had to bring that up because, like I said, I didn't really like how Stranger Things kind of went down season 4. But anyways, going in, she's fine in this one.
Witness the birth of a larva called Mothra. Emma calms Mothra using the Orca, a device that can emit frequencies to attract or alter Titan behavior. A group of eco-terrorists led by former British Army Colonel Alan Jonah, played by Charles Dance, attacks the base and abducts Emma and Madison. At the same time, Mothra flees and pupates under a nearby waterfall. Monarch scientist Dr. Ishiro Serizawa and Dr. Vivian Graham approach former employee Dr. Mark Russell, played by
Kyle
Kyle
Chandler.
Chandler.
This guy's been in 2 separate Godzilla movies, and also in the same movie with like a separate Godzilla and Kong. Think about that. He's in King Kong 2005. He's in this movie, and then he's in Godzilla versus Kong. I don't know how you get that role.
Lucky.
So you know who should be in a Godzilla movie? Bring in Nick fucking Cage. He's a huge Godzilla fan. I think he'd do well.
You're gonna Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold, yeah, hell's yeah. Put Arnold in more stuff. Godzilla, what is going on? Can you imagine if you know what? How about this? Like a remake of like King Kong Escapes with Arnold as Doctor Who.
I could be entertaining.
I'm going to put down the girl.
Mark Russell, being Emma's ex-husband and Madison's father, is is brought in to help track him down. Mark is reluctant at first due to his hatred towards Godzilla, whom he blames for the death of his son during the events in San Francisco in 2014.
Andrew! Sorry.
But eventually agrees. The Monarch team follows Godzilla to Antarctica, where Jonah plans to free a three-headed titan codenamed Monster Zero. Emma frees and awakens.
But which outpost were they at, Nick?
32. Not far away from Outpost 31 in John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yep, there's
more on that later.
Yep.
Emma frees and awakens Monster Zero, who battles Godzilla, devours Graham, and escapes. The team later realizes that Emma is working with the terrorists. From a Monarch bunker in Boston, Emma contacts Monarch and argues that the Titans must be awakened to heal the Earth from the damages that humans have caused. We'll get on that later.
Crazy bitch.
Emma awakens Rodan in Mexico, and the Monarch team lures it towards Monster Zero. After Rodan is defeated, Godzilla ambushes Monster Zero and severs his left head. During the fight, the U.S. Navy launches a prototype weapon called the Oxygen Destroyer, seemingly killing Godzilla. Unaffected, Monster Zero regrows its lost head and awakens all the other dormant titans worldwide, with Rodan submitting to his rule. As a result, Madison disowns Emma. Through mythological texts, Dr. Eileen Chen discovers that Monster Zero is King Ghidorah, a prehistoric alien dragon seeking to transform the Earth. Mothra emerges from her cocoon and flies to Monarch's Bermuda base to communicate with Godzilla, whom is recuperating in an ancient underwater lair. The team locates Godzilla's lair in a submarine, which is highly radioactive. They deduce that it will take too long for Godzilla to heal on his own and decide to detonate a nuclear warhead to speed up the process. Dr. Serizawa sacrifices himself by manually detonating the warhead, reviving Godzilla and increasing his power, giving birth to one of our favorite scenes of the entire Godzilla franchise.
But how is he standing on top of the water? It doesn't fucking matter. His ass is like letting out flashlights that's keeping him afloat. That's my explanation.
Or he's just twirling his tail underwater to keep him afloat.
Or he can just do that. Maybe the radiation's kind of levitating. Godzilla has been shown to fly before.
Emma realizes the destruction Ghidorah and the other Titans will bring to the world is far worse than anything humans could inflict, but Jonah ignores her pleas to stop. Madison overhears this and steals the Orca, and arriving at Fenway Park, she broadcasts a frequency that calms the Titans, but unwittingly attracts all of them to her location. Ghidorah lands in Boston to destroy the Orca, and right as he's about to kill Madison, Godzilla arrives to engage him in battle with Monarch personnel's assistance.
That feels like a nod to Terror Mechagodzilla, that entrance.
It's a nod to something else, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Mark lands a team to rescue Madison and escape the city after learning Godzilla's radiation levels are increasing and will lead to a thermonuclear explosion. Mothra arrives to help Godzilla, but is intercepted by Rodan. She defeats him, but is injured in the process. Ghidorah overpowers Godzilla and prepares to kill him, but Mothra sacrifices herself and transfers her energy to Godzilla. Mark, Emma, and Madison are reunited and reactivate the Orca to lure Ghidorah away from Godzilla. Emma sacrifices herself to lead Ghidorah away, giving Mark, Madison, and the Monarch team time to escape. Godzilla enters a newly empowered state, burning Godzilla.
Or Fire Godzilla, because some people are like, that's not exactly right. It's Fire Godzilla, not Burning Godzilla, because Burning Godzilla was into Godzilla. Whatever. We call it Burning Godzilla. It doesn't fucking matter. You can call it either one.
And defeats Ghidorah. Rodan and the other Titans converge on Godzilla to bow to him, giving him the title of King of the Monsters. During the end credits, news clippings and Monarch public files show that the Titans are helping to heal the planet. A suspected second Mothra egg has been discovered, and some of the Titans are converging on Skull Island. Ancient cave paintings of Godzilla and Kong-like Titans locked in battle are shown, and in a post-credit scene, Jonah and his forces purchase Ghidorah's severed left head in Mexico, thus ending the movie. Seanie Boy, what do you think of the plot?
I enjoy the plot for the most part. I like the idea of the Orca in general and kind of like trying to learn to communicate with the Titans. I mean, that's something that's more of an interesting idea. In some ways, the Orca kind of reminds me of that little device they used in Godzilla, the Hanna-Barbera thing to summon them. I feel like there's nods to that show too. Like, I mean, the ship you can see is like when Godzilla and Ghidorah are like he eats Ghidorah at the end of the movie. You see like the rubbles of Boston. You can see the name of the ship from the TV show too. But yeah, like I said, I think the plot's interesting. It definitely like it's more closely linking the humans with the monsters in a more organic fashion. Because 2014, a lot of it kind of happened by coincidence that Ford was where the Titans were at times. Like, but this one because Monarch is so heavily closely involved with the Titans themselves, so it kind of made more sense why things kind of happened the way they did. And also with the Orca device, it's an easy kind of plot way to kind of get the monsters that you want to see out at like different points in time. So I mean, like I said, I like the plot was interesting. I like how you could see like how Godzilla kind of has his own little arc in the movie too, which is pretty interesting. Because you don't really get like Godzilla character arcs too often in some of the movies. I know Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster had one. You could argue Son of Godzilla, how he kind of evolved as a father in that one. And then maybe, I don't know, like maybe Godzilla versus Megalon or something like that, where he's kind of becoming buddy. Like that was kind of new. But that kind of seems like something that happened between films. But anyways, like I said, I like that. The stuff with the ancient rivalries, the kind of building on the mythos and all that. It's all really fun, fascinating stuff. And of course, giant monsters doing giant monster shit, which is what I love. So yeah, like I said, I enjoyed the plot just fine. It's a interesting Godzilla take with some of the stuff they do, but it feels a little different than a lot of the movies. Like the Orca thing is new, so yeah. Just go ahead, Nick. Just go ahead, talk about the plot. Go ahead.
Pro number one is the plot itself.
Oh, okay. We're just going right into the plot.
I love this movie's plot. Like I said, that anything and everything this movie does, I am just on board. A lot of what Seanie Boy said is true. It builds upon the mythos wonderfully. Kong Skull Island does pretty decent world building too, but that does world building for Skull Island and Kong himself, which is fine because that's kind of a very isolated movie. This movie is literally worldwide monster apocalypse.
Right. It honestly
And
is
it's
the biggest in the scale of the movies too, because Godzilla vs Kong's more self-contained.
hold on, that's another one of my pros too, is the scale. But this movie expands on the mythology, expands on the mythos. It adds a lot of meat to this movie's bones. Like it adds so much lore and context and backstory without pulling a Batman versus Superman. It just explores the history and past of all these monsters, and it paints a gigantic picture of shit that went down thousands of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the mistakes that humanity made in the past are finally coming back to bite the future humans in the ass badly. this movie does so much shit for the overall franchise. Um, this movie series story, it just does so much. And in any other movie, with how much shit that this movie is doing, it would have been almost too much. But for me, I just eat it up. Anything and everything this movie does, I just eat it up. I am on board, completely invested from the first second that the movie goes on. I am just along for the ride. I cannot take my eyes off the movie. I can't stop. I don't skip any scenes. I just watch it from the first second to the last second. I just love this movie's plot. And this will be surprising. Last year, or no, late 2021, actually, as I was doing more prep work for Super Kaiju Binge, I watched another monster movie and I had a massive epiphany. This movie's plot is quite a bit similar to Gamera 2 Advent of Legion. Call me crazy, but it is quite, it is quite similar.
I have a whole Gamera set too, but it's upstairs.
Oh, what'd you get? That really nice arrow set that was like,
I did that big thing that weighs like 20 pounds
and is now like $1,000.
I pre-ordered it, Nick.
I wish I did. It was only 120 when it was up for pre-order.
Mm-hmm.
I was broke at the time, though. Anyway,
yeah.
But yeah, this movie's plot is quite a bit similar to Gamera 2. There is a noticeable and distinct team up between the title monster and humans. The title monster is going up against an ancient alien threat that is going to destroy the world. Both monsters are hit by a massive explosion halfway through the movie that does nothing to the enemy monster, but takes the title monster out of the movie for a little while. And at the very end, there is gratitude for the humans towards Godzilla, but then there's that little shred of potential doubt. Both movies end pretty much with like how the guy with the glasses says, "Good thing he's on our side for now."
Foreshadowing.
Like that.
Although there's some things that the next movie does that I don't know, because we'll get to like one of my pros of like the Sarazawa scene with Godzilla. I felt like, or just kind of that moment he has with humans. I feel like that kind of gets like brushed aside in the next film. It's like it never really happened. But that's a Godzilla versus Kong thing, which is also an entertaining movie. But you and I both know that movie was.
Save that for later.
I'm sorry, Nick.
And both movies have a massive increase in both action and spectacle over its predecessor.
Yes, there's some
appreciated,
hauntingly beautiful shots in this. There's mesmerizing shots in this movie. Like you could just put them as like big Renaissance map paintings, as I described some of the shots. Like for instance, like the scene where Godzilla and Ghidorah kind of staring each other down. That looks like an early like a Renaissance painting come to life. There's some really magnificent shots in this thing. So, but we'll get to that.
So that's my first pro. The plot itself, I love it. Anything and everything this movie does, I am on board 100%.
Fantastic, sir. I guess I'll get into my first number pro, and we touched on it much earlier on in the video.
I have 14 pros, by the way.
I got like 13 or so in here, but some of them kind of mold together, and I may add things as I'm going through, but, you know, we'll just play it by ear. So I'm just going to go pro number one here, sir. Bear fucking McCreary. This goddamn score is so fucking good from the first frame to the last frame, bringing in a remix of Blue Oyster Cult with Serge Tankian, which is a song remix that's surprisingly like as good, even if like not better than the original in some ways. Like, I mean, I love the Blue Oyster Cult song, but like this update is a really, really good update with the Taika chants or whatever and all that. The chanting, which they added to this thing, which Godzilla Sing Your Point did. add into the Godzilla's theme, I might add afterwards. Rodan's theme is really quite good. I think the only theme that I think is kind of the weakest of the bunch is King Ghidorah's, but
It's not
it's
really used that much, but it's still
right.
good music.
Right, it's eerie enough, but I mean, Bear McCreary is a fantastic composer. Like, I just got done playing God of War Ragnarok like a month or two ago. Amazing score, like just stupendous, if you will. But this score, it's so good. Like, they have the updated Ifukube themes, the way they kind of integrated them, like Goodbye Old Friends, like
Hold
when
off
that.
on the Ifukube themes, because
Well, I'm
that
talking about the
is
great
part of
score.
that's part of another pro that I have for this movie.
Well, like, I want to acknowledge it really quickly since I'm talking about the score itself, like the classic themes, dun, 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 and then you have the chanting and all that right in there, bringing back some of Mothra's old music in there, like, and just like kind of making it like, I mean, you don't have the singing fairies, although I know they did try to like have a post-credit scene of that at some point in the movie, but you don't have like the singing, but you still have
The
uh the
instrumental.
the instrumental in there. I mean, like, for like when Mothra's God Rays hit, like that music is just so immaculate and just like you're just like stunned, like you're in a state of like mesmerized, like beauty. I mean, that goes in like my second pro. Can I just get my second pro because it's kind of linked to this? Beautiful visuals. So great score. Is accompanied by absolutely stunning visuals in this movie. I mean, Mothra scenes alone, it's like the whole energy of the movie changes as soon as like she shows up. Like this really immaculate, beautiful creature, and just like it's like a sense of like wonder and awe. It's like you're just like your jaw hits the floor. It's like when she emerges from the waterfall or the God Ray sequence, which I mean, I feel like there's some more going on in that scene that like
Excuse me.
there's some beautiful looking shots. Like I said, some things look like Renaissance paintings. My favorite final shot in a Godzilla movie is the bowing scene. Because like that's just such a perfect shot to end the movie. Like when I saw it in the theaters, like my jaw's like hitting the floor. Like this is like one of the coolest final shots ever in any movie in history. Of course, one of the most famous shots is Ghidorah on top of the volcano, and then you have
Oh
like a
yeah.
crucifix there. Like it's like the apocalypse is like coming to life. Lawrence Shear was the cinematographer on this thing, and of course, he also did the cinematography on Joker, and he knows how to frame some shots. Yeah, the
You have
same
to say
person
King.
who, and he also did Black Adam as well, I believe. Like, because like the cinematography is really good in those movies, and maybe something like I said, VFX and all that too. But they still had to be framed and all that. So this is a beautiful, beautiful. There's so many like beautiful looking shots in this movie, really on their own. That really kind of like I said, great score, and then the visuals that accompany them, or when Godzilla emerges out of the water, and like this, like you just feel the size and impact and the presence of him. But it's like it's the colors in that too. It's like a dreamlike state at times. I mean, each monster kind of has their own color palette. Godzilla kind of has the blue, and then he obviously turns burning fire Godzilla, whatever you want to call him. And that like there's some like epic shots right there.
I'd still say he's blue.
Yeah, blue, and then Mothra's kind of got like a greenish, bluish tint to her. Rodan's red. Ghidorah's kind of still got the
Gold.
the gold, which that is kind of one nitpick is we don't really get to see Ghidorah in the best of lighting because of the superstorms that kind of accompany him, which I understand he's terraforming the planet, but at the same time, it's like I want a good look at Ghidorah in kind of better lighting without having to worry about the superstorms. You know what I'm saying? You kind of get that a little bit in the volcano is kind of the best look you get in them, but it's kind of like a little nitpick. But that'll be something else later on. But yeah, like I said, great scores and just beautiful, breathtaking, beautiful visuals. It's a stunning movie to look at. And Bear McCreary, my God, why can't we get Bear McCreary back to score another MonsterVerse movie? I know
Right?
Junkie XL did the next one, and I guess he's going to do Godzilla and Kong. But for the MonsterVerse TV show, to my knowledge, they don't have a composer. Bring back Bear McCreary. Bring it
Yeah,
back.
please.
Everyone loved his score. I mean, even people who are more detractors of the movie can't help but admit how amazing the score is. I know people who weren't huge fans of the movie, but they're like, but they're just like, but fucking goddamn, that Bear McCreary score was so goddamn good. Like his score is universally, I think the most universally loved thing about this movie, or even detractors, like they got to admit the score is really, really good. It's
So
one
let
of the
me
best.
get into it.
So
Pro
go ahead.
number 2 for me is Bear McCreary's fucking score.
Fucking score.
Yeah. So I had no clue who Bear McCreary was before this movie.
Same here. I heard Battlestar
Except
Galactica,
for
but
except for the fact I knew he did the music for The Walking Dead. But with this movie, damn. Bear McCreary instantly became one of my favorite film composers of all time. This same year, too, he would also do the music for the 2019 Child's Play remake. That movie has a really good score, too.
God
But
of
of
War.
course, a lot more people know him best for doing the music for the two newest God of War games, which are both phenomenal.
Yes. Also, I will add one other thing. He did compose one other MonsterVerse thing, and that's that Call of Duty MonsterVerse Godzilla trailer. So he did do the
That
music at that.
nobody gives a fuck about.
It was a cool trailer though, not the actual like the game itself, but like the story, the one where they're kind of fully realized CG characters and they look really realistic. The trailer for that, the Operation Monarch trailer, where it's Kong going down the cliff to try and punch Godzilla. Bear McCreary did the music for it, and it looks great. Like I said, that's kind of like when I initially imagined Godzilla versus Kong was going to look like, with that style, with Kong on Skull Island and Godzilla coming out of the water. But like that score and accompanying those visuals, I mean, like when he emerges from the Antarctic, it really kind of helped builds an epic. Like he just makes every moment more epic. Like that score just carries every scene. It's like, I mean, the music really elevates this movie, Nick. I mean, look at
Yeah.
another movie where it does that, like Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Like that movie wouldn't be nearly as impactful without that John Williams score. It's kind of the same effect that it has here, where just the score just makes everything just work so much
Mhm.
better and just carries so
Um,
much of the movie.
this is one of the most varied scores that I have ever heard for, especially a Godzilla movie. The only one, honestly, that comes close. I love the score for Final Wars, but I like this one more than that. I can't believe I'm saying that. It's maybe by a small margin. But the only Godzilla movie that comes close to being this varied is Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2.
That's a great score too.
Because this movie touches on so many different emotions. It's not even funny. When the movie is being a bit more creepy and suspenseful, the movie or the score excels. When it's being more action packed and bombastic, oh my god, does the movie excel. When it's a bit more sad and emotional, the music fits. And when it's very awe-inspiring, the music fits. I mean, I could list off so many of my favorite moments for the music, but I'm going to save that for another one of my pros. But
Mm-hmm.
and of course, this movie does incorporate some Akira Ifukube themes, which that is tied to another one of my pros. But it is greatly appreciated. The updated Akira Ifukube themes here are so fucking awesome, and they're so well used. And the updated version of Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla song during the end credits is fucking awesome.
Oh, it's so good. Just so
Damn,
good.
Bear McCreary, you outdid yourself for this movie. And honestly, God of War is great, but this is his best work, in my opinion. This
Mm-hmm.
is best, and it's my favorite of all of his music.
Just
Pro number 3 for me is the cast. I love the cast in this movie. Gone are the boring, not interesting actors that I don't give a shit about. That Seanie Boy knows what I'm talking about, so don't even bring them up. I love all of the actors in this movie, and I love all the characters in this movie. The exception of maybe Jonah, played by Charles Dance. Charles Dance is a good actor, but I just kind of don't give a shit about his storyline, and it's kind of unresolved and forgotten about. So I just don't care. I don't
yeah.
really have an opinion of him.
We need Alan Jonah back. I need to resolve. Like that's a story that needs to be resolved at some point. Maybe he'll be in Godzilla and Kong. I don't know if maybe it's a secret or something, but I think we need to resolve Alan Jonah, whether it's in here or one of those graphic novels, because it's kind of irritated me since the movie came out that we haven't resolved that story or even left hints that we're going to resolve it. It's just kind of an unknown, mysterious thing, and in some instances, an ambiguous ending kind of works. But this is one of those things where you're setting up a universe. You got to have the payoff at some point. So.
Let's start with Mark Russell, played by Kyle Chandler. He is great. I like to call his type of character. His type of character is not the first that we've seen, but he's got what I call PGSD. post-Godzilla stress disorder. Or for this universe, it could be a different version of PTSD, post-Titan stress disorder, as me and Victoria coined last night. I like him. I like him a lot. He's very well acted. He's very well written. His motivations make sense. I don't like Godzilla characters who have a hatred of Godzilla for the sake of such. It is definitely much more preferable when somebody has a dislike of Godzilla for very understandable reasons. Even though the character losing a family member because of Godzilla's existence
It's kind of
has
been done.
been done quite a bit in the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
For me, and especially now that I'm a dad, I can understand Mark's dislike of Godzilla because, he's a dad. He lost his son. I wouldn't be very happy if I lost my son in a giant monster attack. So I understand his dislike for Godzilla. And at first, and even still to this day, watching the movie, he's like so adamant about killing Godzilla. He's so adamant about just getting rid of him. He's so angry and bitter towards Godzilla. It just gets under my skin just a little bit, but they do handle it quite well. And they do handle Mark accepting Godzilla and somewhat forgiving Godzilla for what he did over the course of the film. There's a lot, even at the intimidation scene, even though he's very anti-Godzilla, he's still like
In
saying,
awe of this creature that's just like, I don't know. It's like the size and scale. He's like one of a kind out there. It's kind of hard. It's like if you're like on the ocean and you're just kind of out there and you see like a blue whale pop up. Like it's hard not to be impressed by something like that size and scale, and just something like kind of like so unique and ancient like that that's still around in modern times.
I gotta add one more pro, so now I have 15.
Okay. Let me go ahead and get into pro number 3 for me. This one will be kind of more of a quick one. I'm going to say the orca.
Grab a drink.
I'm going to go with the orca. I think the orca is a really interesting device as it means to kind of communicate with the Titans. I think that's kind of something like interesting kind of added to the MonsterVerse lore, and perhaps another way to kind of like kind of do some different things with the series. I mean, we kind of had something similar in the Hanna-Barbera show, where they activate it and it just kind of calls Godzilla. But here, being able to kind of control the monsters and like this way, it's kind of been done a little bit. But I think like as a means to kind of like soothe the monsters, kind of do something a little bit different, like kind of bridge the gap between
Pacify
human and
them.
monster. Pacify them, yes. I like bridging the gap between human and monsters. Although the next movie kind of does something even further with that by giving Kong sign language, which is an idea I thought should have been done years ago, and then thankfully they kind of like now like that's like even more of a link between man and monster, and maybe down the road we can use Kong as like an interpreter. Although we have had scenes in Godzilla movies where the monsters
Godzilla,
language.
what terrible language!
My favorite line, what terrible language, or hey Anguilla, there's a lot of trouble ahead, where they're just like smoking cigarettes or something, or Godzilla says I gotta learn to fight my own battles.
Back to the cast.
But yeah, like I said, I like the orca. I think it's an interesting device, and I know GVK originally incorporated the orca into its plot, and then that got kind of ripped away. I know you don't want to keep bringing up GVK, but because we're talking about the orca, I felt the need to reference it in this instance. But I like the orca. I think it's, of course, another Jaws reference, because every MonsterVerse movie with Godzilla has to have some sort of Jaws reference, which Godzilla and Kong, or whatever the hell they call this next movie, needs a Jaws reference. And of course, the MonsterVerse TV show, the live action one, needs another Jaws reference, because you can't have enough Jaws references.
Back to the cast. Yeah, I like Mark Russell. He's likable. He's a good protagonist. Then we have, I'm only going to talk about the main four, I guess. There is Madison Russell. She is really just here to be the more like she's the audience, I would say. She
Mm-hmm.
is the voice of reason. I can see that she somewhat agrees with what her mother is doing, but she also still cares for her dad and her getting caught in the crossfire. But she is the one to really see through the flaws in her mother's plan. And like she has the balls to say, Mom, you're a fucking idiot for what you're doing.
Right. I also like her little moment with Jonah that feels improvised, where she just like flips him off, where he's like doing smiley faces, and he's just like, "Yeah, screw you." Like I
Yeah,
said,
that's
there's kind of little moments like that I kind of like that the movie has. Although I do feel like the cast, you probably could have cut at least one of them out, and just kind of merge their characteristics with another. Like um, you have what's his name? You had like Bradley Whitford, and then you had who's the other guy? With the beard. What's his name? I'm drawing a blank at the moment. Exactly. You could have it's Rick and then Thomas Middleditch's character. What's his name again? I don't have a cast list with me, but I'm drawing a blank on it.
hold on. Bradley
See,
Whit. Oh, the Bradley Whitford as Dr. Rick and Thomas Middleditch
yeah, that guy. What's his name in the movie?
as Sam Coleman.
Yeah, Sam Coleman. See, I drew a blank on it. Exactly. You could have probably merged those two characters together because they kind of
Okay,
both
yeah,
seem.
I'll agree. But real quick, I do want to talk about Dr. Rick. He's funny.
He knows exactly what kind of movie he's in. Like he adds kind of that
He
campiness
is
to it.
totally chewing scenery and he is eating up everything possible about being in a Godzilla movie.
Right. I mean, that's a
Smart.
funny actor. I mean, he was in Billy Madison.
He's smart. He's funny. He's like he thinks on his feet and he has a quick wit.
Right.
Um so much of his dialogue is so iconic to me, but I think we should stop. Why? Because I'd still like to have kids someday,
Yeah,
preferably ones without flippers.
mhm.
um, my God, Zilla.
What are you doing, dude? I don't know. Like Bradley Whitford's a funny act. I mean, I've seen him in a lot of things. I've seen him in Cabin in the Woods. He's pretty funny in that.
He played a gay rights activist in Shameless and watched William H. Macy be gangbanged by two other gay men.
Okay, well, all right. Billy Madison, of course, is one of his other ones, and of course, he was also in Get Out. I'd have voted for a third term.
And
I don't know, like,
also, Dr. Serizawa's got that lizard juiced.
yes. I know some people
Funny.
find him annoying, but I know some people find him quite funny. Like, I mean, he stands out a bit. Like, he thinks he knows he's in like a kind of a. I mean, a lot of movies I felt are made to be intentionally like campy on purpose. Just to kind of replicate some of those older cheesy like lines in monster movies. Because like that's, I mean, if you look at some of Michael Dougherty's like old films that he's done, like he did like his own little Godzilla type like monster-esque film where he dubs it over and he makes the lines intentionally kind of hokey. I like a lot of the lines are intentionally hokey on purpose. Not all the jokes land, but there's definitely like that kind of tongue-in-cheek like need to kind of have like cheesy monster movie lines in a monster movie. You can just feel that with especially with Rick throughout the movie.
Last character I want to talk about is the return of Ken Watanabe as Dr. Serizawa. He's great.
He's better in this one than the last movie.
Marginally, maybe. He has more emotional scenes, but I think he has more iconic lines in 2014.
Let them
But
fight.
Huh?
Let them fight.
Yeah, of course. But he is still. Oh, that's another Dr. Rick moment. So are we just gonna
Little
let this be
Serizawa,
a
let them
Dr.
fight action.
Serizawa let them fight situation here? But Ken is still acting his ass off in this movie.
He has the best scene in the whole movie. And the best scene
Yes,
in the MonsterVerse.
his
I will
sacrifice
say
to save Godzilla. It's awesome.
that's one of my, when I get to one of my other pros, like, because I always want to just have that scene on its own because it is my favorite scene in the MonsterVerse. But yeah, Ken is really, really good in this thing. I was talking to somebody and they kind of had the idea of what they think probably would have made the movie a little bit stronger was have it be like kind of like replicating Wrath of Khan with Serizawa and Jonah as kind of old rivals like Kirk and Khan, but like kind of using like the monsters as kind of chess pawns for their own little like conflict going on. I'm like, that kind of would have been an interesting idea just to kind of have like if Jonah was like an old friend of Serizawa and kind of have like a little bit of a rivalry there, like, you know, that actually sounds pretty good. I almost kind of want to see that take on the movie with it. But just kind of using the monsters as their own little pawns and stuff with the orca. So that's just something that I just wanted to address because I had a conversation with somebody about it. And I'm like, that's actually a pretty interesting idea. I wonder what the movie would have been like if they kind of went with that. But yes, Ken is really good.
Thankfully, his acting is a lot less melodramatic than it was in 2014. It feels like he's putting more emotion and he's putting more effort into his lines and his line delivery. His facial expressions are still very strong. He has still touches of being melodramatic, but it's mostly because this movie tackles, of course, a very serious problem. So he's being a bit melodramatic to reinforce his point and to prove that what he's talking about is 100% serious and he's 100% right. And I dig his probably my favorite line aside from his sacrifice.
Yeah.
You are meddling with forces that you have no business meddling with, or along those lines. Like the look on his face and his tone of voice, like you can tell Serizawa is furious
Yeah, absolutely.
with Dr. Emma in this case.
Yeah.
Like he is, yeah, he's not happy.
No, he ain't a happy camper.
But of course, his best scene of the movie, of the two movies combined, one of the best moments of the whole MonsterVerse, is his
It is
sacrifice
the best moment in the
to save
MonsterVerse.
Godzilla. It is fucking amazing. It features my
Saraba Tomoyo.
probably my favorite piece of music of the whole movie. I think it's just called "Goodbye, Old Friend."
Yep, it's called Goodbye Old Friend. It's a beautiful track. It's kind of reminiscent of like the original 1954 film. Obviously, it's kind of a role reversal of that movie.
Inversion.
It's an inversion of it, kind of taking something like as destructive as an atom bomb, but using it to kind of say like for a good purpose. I think there's something kind of fascinating about that because I mean he has the history with it because he has his father's watching that, and he's taking something that's caused him a lot of pain, but kind of inverting it and kind of overcoming that. And I mean, he has the line beforehand where he's like, sometimes in order to heal our wounds, we have to make peace with the demons that create them. He's finally making peace with his demons and using like that power and kind of turning it on its head, if you will. He's not going to let that kind of control his life anymore. He's going to use it for something good, something noble. And he has to sacrifice himself to do it. But it's the only time in the franchise where you have a tender moment between a human and Godzilla.
Yep.
And there was something like the first time I saw it, I was getting like teary eyed in it because like it's really unexpected the way it's kind of handled in the movie. And plus we get like this epic Godzilla temple and all that, which I think is just really cool. The music's beautiful, like the way he says it. He doesn't say it in English; he says it in Japanese, which I think makes it all the more powerful. Just that little performance between him and the King of the Monsters. It's a tender moment. It's something that we really haven't gotten enough of because Kong gets those moments all the time. I think you need to have more of those moments with Godzilla, which is what I like about his character. Some of the stuff, I mean,
Agreed.
it's more pros later on, but like I said, I think it's a beautiful scene. It's my favorite scene in the MonsterVerse as of right now. And it's not an action scene. It's a kind of quiet, tender moment, which it just left more of an impact on me. Because I've seen a lot of great fights and epic moments, but there's something about a little quiet scene like that that just really kind of like, it just kind of stuck with me. I don't know. There was something really powerful about it. It was just a beautifully done scene. So that was actually another one of my pros was Ken and the Goodbye Old Friend scene because I think it's the best scene in the movie and the MonsterVerse in general. Like just everything about it just clicks, and of course it leads to the rebirth scene where he's like roaring up and he has the moment with Mark and all that where they kind of have that stare down. And like I said, we needed more moments like this. I just kind of wish this carried over into the next movie a little bit more. But I understand why he's rage-fueled in the next movie. But I don't know, like that sacrifice meant something. And even then, he's kind of had the notes. So I hope like some of that stuff kind of gets addressed later on. But like I said, there's a sense of there's a real emotional the stakes in that scene.
Yep.
It's very
All
tender.
right. So back to that. So to talk about the music for that scene, this is just a fun fact. So apparently, Bear McCreary, he had a choir sing. I don't know what the lyrics
Ancient
are.
Babylonian, I think.
Ancient Babylonian, which is the oldest form of language in human history. I don't know what the lyrics are, but that is what they are chanting in that scene for that music. It's Ancient Babylonian. Serizawa's performance, or Watanabe's performance, excuse me, I think is at the top of its game for his sacrifice. You can tell that he's in a lot of pain and he's fighting so hard to keep going to do this one last thing for this giant monster that has pretty much controlled his life,
right,
and dominated his life for
but
the
he views him
majority
as
of
a
it.
friend too, which I don't know.
He
There's something
does,
kind of
yeah.
sweet and touching about that you just don't really see because, like, I mean, you have characters who hate Godzilla, and you have characters who are infatuated with him. I mean, I know you're not a fan of her, but Mickey had a connection with Godzilla, but nothing. There was no scene quite like this in any of the other movies prior. The only
And I
time we
love
really
it.
got right. This is the second, like, this and another scene from Son of Godzilla are the two most tender scenes in the whole Godzilla franchise when he has to hug his son. I don't know, like it's a toss up between me of like which one is more tender, but like I mean this one is a little bit more emotional, I feel, because it is a sacrifice to save someone. But I mean, we need kind of more moments like these to kind of, I don't know, like humanize the monsters, if you will. I mean, could you even call it humanizing? But just it kind of like it gives you like more emotional stakes with it. I feel, I don't know. You feel what
Makes
I'm
the
trying to say?
monster more personable.
Right, that's the word I'm looking for. A little bit more personable. Like we need more scenes like that because Kong gets plenty of those. Godzilla doesn't get those too often, and I get it. He's a little bit more rugged, but he still emotes, right? He's still this ancient creature who's very intelligent.
Yep.
But like we just need more scenes like that. I think so you can kind
All
of
right,
like
hold on.
get more of his character.
Let's
But
move on. I want to talk about two quick pros before we move on.
okay,
Because we already touched on them, at least one of them. The humor. This movie is pretty funny. It's not quite as funny as Kong Skull Island, but there are some really good snicker moments. They mostly come from Dr. Stanton. Even Serizawa has a funny line. Did you just come up with that all by yourself? No, I read it in a fortune cookie once. A very long fortune cookie.
that's a funny line too.
This movie has a good tongue-in-cheek sense of humor. But pro number 4 is the cast camaraderie. One of the biggest things that I praise about Avengers Age of Ultron, it's the only Avengers movie where the entire team is working together. They're all working together to solve a massive problem. There's no bickering. There's no conflict or tension.
I disagree with that, Nick. They had the argument with Tony and Steve when they're like chopping wood, and then Thor grabs
That
him.
is
It's
the
like,
only scene where it happens, but it's for an understandable reason.
right.
It's not tension or conflict because there's a dick measuring contest going on, like in the first Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
They are at each other's throats because they just all got their asses kicked and they're just kind of flailing and floundering, not knowing what to do. But then they quickly pull their heads out of their ass and they just put their heads together to solve a problem. That's the only scene where that happens. But for the most part, they are just working like clockwork, working together to solve a problem, pooling all their resources together to defeat Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
With this movie, it's very similar. There's no tension. There's no conflict. There's no, even though Mark Russell is anti-Godzilla, he still is throwing in his knowledge of animals to figure out what's going on with the monsters. Like he says, hey, don't aim your guns at him. Look passive. You don't want to look aggressive to an alpha. That's why he says lower the guns and raise the blast shields.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses his knowledge of pack hunting behavior to figure out that Ghidorah is the new alpha, the Titans are not acting erratically. They're acting as a pack. They're hunting together.
Also, I have something to say about Mark, but it does come in the form of cons. But you'll
Save it
know
for
what.
later.
Right, I'll save it for later, and you'll probably understand where I'm coming from with it with him.
And the rest of the movie, I would have 100% expected Admiral Stenz to be the complete stick in the mud and thorn in everybody's ass just for the sake of such. He might almost be a couple of times, but when proof and facts are presented to the military, they accept it. They're like, okay, you're not wrong. We see what you're doing, so we're going to do that. Everybody is working like clockwork together the whole
Mhm.
movie to evacuate civilians, mediate damages, thwart monster attacks, fighting monsters, and getting other monsters to fight themselves. Everybody in the movie is working together to solve a huge problem. And for me, that's what I prefer. I don't like forced tension. I don't like forced arguments between the characters for the sake of a dick measuring contest or big egos clashing. It bores the shit out of me. I just want people to work together to solve a big problem. And this movie does it 110%. And I love it. I'm going to get into another pro real quick, too. Pro
Okay,
number 5.
let me get into a pro really quick. I haven't had one in a while. I obviously, some of the cast is enjoyable for the most part. I think they're
Oh, it's
played by
6.
competent actors or competent actors and actresses that do their roles for the most part. Maybe some of the writing could be tweaked a little bit to be a little bit better. I mean, Emma is kind of like this really iffy character. She's kind of like a crazy psycho bitch.
Yeah, we'll talk about her later.
The next thing I want to get into is the lore and world building is the next pro I want to add. I'm sure that's probably one of the ones you're going to lead to in a second, but
No,
this
no,
movie
it's
has
not,
the
but you can
best.
talk about it.
This one I think has the best use of lore and world building within the MonsterVerse so far because it's more of a mythological type movie. I mean, we're bringing in aliens. We're going into the Hollow Earth a little bit, finding ancient Godzilla temples with its own Babylonian language and all that. Skull Island kind of had touched on it a little bit more, but this is the one where it felt the most mythic out of all the movies. There's the most
Similar to
fantasy.
the Heisei Gamera series.
Right. This one is the most mythic in the MonsterVerse. The next movie goes more science fiction. Kong Skull Island is just kind of a fun island movie. 2014 is more this grounded one. This one is the most mythic in terms of like the creatures themselves, their like history. It has a bit of mystique qualities to it that the other ones don't quite have. But I really like the lore and world building. We got Monarch that's fleshed out. You have rival organizations going on too, and just kind of utilizing the Titans for their own purposes, whether it's weapons or destroying the world and all that. Like it's all kind of interesting stuff, different moving pieces going on. You have different factions and all that, and seeing the Titans kind of caught up in the middle of this power grab, if you will. So I like that stuff. And then even the ancient history between Godzilla and Ghidorah is all kind of fascinating stuff. Like one of my favorite moments in the movie is, of course, when Godzilla makes his entrance in Antarctica and then he sees Ghidorah. But what I love, too, is the way they kind of animate his face to where he just gives this look and he looks absolutely like pissed off. Like you can sense the history in the way he kind of sees Ghidorah. Somebody brought up a good point once when I was on Twitter. I'll have to bring it up. I think it was Saber Spark, but he was complaining about the Lion King 2019. He's just like how they have no emotions. He's like Godzilla King of the Monsters has more emotions than that. And then he pointed out the scene and he's like, look at Godzilla sees Ghidorah, but you can see the emotions, you can see the years of history and hatred with a simple look on his face. It's more emotive than the 2019 Lion King film. And I'm like, yeah, he's absolutely right on point.
Uh-huh.
So
We'll talk about more of that when we talk about Godzilla.
Right. But like I said, I want to bring up like lore and world building and the history going on with the Titans and kind of like adding this mythology to it. With the whole Hollow Earth aspect, which gets fleshed out more in the next movie, which is really cool. But yeah, like I said, it was kind of fun too. Like when this movie's coming out, like wow, they're building upon more things. Obviously, like the ancient Godzilla temple is something new we haven't seen before. Like the society that worship Godzilla. Like what's that story? What's that history? I want to know more about that. But I mean, they leave just enough open for you for like maybe future films could kind of explore. But I like that. I like how like there was these people who worship these giant, massive creatures in ancient times, and had their own factions, and even like the end credits, if you kind of pause them at certain points in time, it does tell its own story of the humans and all that. Like there's a whole like text of it all, so if you want to go into it, but it's all fascinating stuff. So I love the lore and world building in this one quite a bit. I think it does the best and overall in terms of the monsterverse in that regards.
I just wrap everything that Sean said up into my plot pro, so I second everything that he says. It's pro number 6, so excuse me. Pro number 6. Man, is this movie colorful. This is, I don't know, Godzilla versus Kong is pretty
I think
colorful.
Godzilla versus Kong. Well, I think this one, it's colorful in a lot of scenes, but then I think kind of the rain kind of washes some of it out, where it's kind of dark in that. Like not as dark as 2014, but I think the whole neon fueled ending of GBK kind of like
That's true. That makes up for that. I think they're kind of tied for different reasons, but
right. There's pros and cons to each
movie,
one.
very similar to a lot of stuff that Sean said for his pro for the stunning visuals. Yeah, I agree. But man, is this movie colorful. It's very pleasant to look at. So many scenes, yeah, like Sean said, could be made into like posters. When Godzilla and Ghidorah first face off in Antarctica.
Can I say one other thing too, Nick?
Spreading her wings in the waterfall.
This movie had so many goddamn posters, and I wanted every single one of them.
Yeah, me too.
There were so many beautiful, like the IMAX posters, like the Harry Center. Like this movie had the best use of posters in like the last like 10 years. Like nothing came close to it. Even like some of the other MonsterVerse films had some great posters. Like Kong Skull Island's like Apocalypse Kong poster, like the IMAX one. I really want to get that one. That one looked really cool. 2014 had some good ones. Godzilla vs. Kong had some good ones too, but King of the Monsters, I think, had the best posters in the MonsterVerse. There's just so many incredible ones, and like you just kind of lose track. Like this one right here, it's not the best that they've made, but it's still really cool. There's just so many goddamn awesome posters. I just want them all. It's like a Pokemon trainer trying to catch them. Yeah,
look at my phone's background.
Oh, I do have this one as my background.
That one's cool too.
Yeah, like this.
Overall, yeah, not much to say, but this movie is very colorful. It's very pleasant to look at. I love it. Pro number 7, I already talked about this too, is the scope and scale. This movie's big.
It's big. It's huge.
The whole problem of this movie, it's global. Ghidorah is literally coming here to terraform the planet to his own liking. This is a better monster apocalypse than the Godzilla Monster Apocalypse novel.
I didn't read it, but I'll take your word for it.
I know a lot about it through Wikizilla, so I just know a lot of what happens in it. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the definitive Godzilla Monster Apocalypse.
Right. Until the next movie comes out next year. We'll see how that one goes in terms of apocalyptic scale. I hear it's the biggest in scale. So
who knows? But
I'm very excited. This one to be excited again. You know, we're getting close to like previews in there. It'll be coming up in a few months. Aren't you excited, man? Like the hype mode's gonna start gonna start to hit soon.
I'll just wait for that to happen. But anyway,
we're talking about it. It's getting me excited again. So like I'm a big kid.
I love how big this movie feels. It's it's way bigger than 2014. That's for damn sure.
And 2014 was pretty big too in scale.
It's definitely way bigger than Kong Skull Island.
Yeah,
that's more self-contained movies. Yeah,
that's
but like contained.
That's like a Jun Fukuda, like one of his Island Godzilla movies in terms of scale.
True, in a good way though. Yeah, I love the movie's scale of this. Pro number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. The amazing fan service and the passion.
And the Easter eggs. So I'm going to put that as one of my pros too. So go ahead and talk.
You can tell, I've said this before, this was a Godzilla movie made by Godzilla fans, and it was made for Godzilla fans.
Yes.
You can just absolutely tell that everybody making this movie was a fan.
Right.
And that passion and that spirit and that desire to just be like, hey guys, I'm one of you and I'm making something for you guys.
Right,
I'm throwing everything possible to be a huge reference towards this franchise's past and throwing out so many Easter eggs, references, and homages to not just monster movies, but um, other horror movies and just movies in general. Like
Right.
Comical Island did this too with like Apocalypse Now.
Right. Or Evangelion, where it's the shot of Kong in the sunlight.
That too, yeah.
Right.
I want to list off a couple of these references, namely the I think a reference is the plot in and of itself, with it being very similar to Gamera 2, Advent of Legion. But all the names of the outposts, I picked up on this in the snap of a finger. The only one that took me a minute to figure out was Ghidorah's, but I'll go through them. So Mothra is, of course, held at Outpost 61, 1961 being when Mothra debuted. Rodan is held at Outpost 56, 1956 being when Rodan first debuted, and was when me and Seanie Boy reviewed it for Super Kaiju Binge. Godzilla is not held, but Castle Bravo is known as Outpost 54, and this being where they mainly keep an eye on Godzilla all throughout the world, where they track his pathways and his locations. Ghidorah is held at Outpost 32, which is a dual reference to its one stop above Outpost 31 from John Carpenter's The Thing, which also takes place at Antarctica.
Can you imagine they're set in the same universe? Wouldn't that be crazy?
Yeah, right?
Well, hey, Kurt Russell's in him. He's in the MonsterVerse now, maybe. I don't know.
But more specifically, 32 is half of 64, which is when Ghidorah first debuted and Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. The reference in fan service is also in the music, with the reusing of a lot of Akira Ifukube themes. It doesn't feel like just a reference for the sake of such. This movie, in my opinion, probably has the very best fan service of any movie ever.
The only one I can understand where some people may have nitpicks with is the use of the oxygen destroyer, because if you have no idea what that,
I like that.
Right. I mean, it's cool to see it in here, but the oxygen destroyer had such a significance on the plot of 1954. It's kind of just randomly brought up, fans will get it, but other people will be kind of left confused, what is an oxygen destroyer? Oh, okay, it just kind of served its purpose. I don't know. I feel like the oxygen destroyer should have a little bit more of an impact, but it was still cool to have it like a nice Easter egg. You got the maser cannons too.
And when Rodan chases down all the planes, there's a couple shots that were done in an homage to the Giant Claw, the shitty 50s movie.
Oh God,
you can just feel these guys are just nerding out making this movie.
Terror Mechagodzilla, don't forget that one. The ship from the Hanna-Barbera thing, which we brought up earlier.
Yep.
So
it's very rewarding to just do a deep dive into this movie and just
the Mothra twins, which is
I
didn't pick up on that until the second time I saw the movie.
Yeah, me neither.
Because I'm like, wait a minute. It was kind of a funny realization when I saw it the second time. Like, wait a minute. Oh my God, she's playing two different characters. Because her hair was long. How'd she get here to there so quickly? And then it hit me.
That this is, I already said this is one of the best examples of a movie with fan service. It's probably the best. It's not just here for the sake of such, like with the Star Wars sequel trilogy. I like The Force Awakens, but I will admit that those three movies heavily rely on referencing Star Wars' past just to do it. Just to be
Chewie,
like,
you weren't here. Here's a medal.
Huh?
Here's a medal, Chewie, for some reason, because you didn't get one before.
But with this movie, it's just the filmmakers nerding out and showing references to the fans to say, hey, we're fans too. but they also take bits and pieces from the franchise's past and retool them into something that's a little bit new. Fans will get it, and most of them will appreciate, oh, okay, I see what you did there. That's a nice retooling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love it. I love all of the fan service in this movie. It's the perfect kind. It is here just to be a wink to the fans, but it can also serve a purpose,
Right,
which
right.
is the kind.
Like even like the Sarazawa scene too. Like that's clearly like pulling from 54, but inverting it and flipping it into a different fashion. Like there, it's familiar, but doing something different
Different.
with it and kind of like the polar opposite of it. So like that's an instance where I liked it. But let me get into this next pro right here. There's some pretty entertaining action sequences in this movie. With the standout sequence in terms of action being the Rodan flying chase scene, which is something we haven't really well, I mean, we kind of had bits of it before, but never really fully realized like a giant monster chasing you throughout the skies and like an aerial combat scene, and the military just getting the shit wrecked out of them by Rodan, and like things getting blown up. The epic score by Bear McCreary was like Rodan. I don't know. Like when I was watching the first time, like that was the scene where I was like most like excited, kind of watching it. There's some great epic moments with Godzilla in that, like when he makes his entrance and has its fight moments with Ghidorah, where he literally becomes Emperor Palpatine. He just like unlimited power. Um, like that's all I call that the unlimited power scene, where he just he's just kind of like launching like in the air and all that. I don't know. There's some pretty cool epic action moments in there. Like there's some like it's kind of more action moments. I feel like with some of the monster combat bits, like there's some good brawling stuff, but it's really kind of like the moments that you most remember from it. Whereas like I think in Godzilla versus Kong, like it's continuous offense that's really kind of memorable. Like, but with this one, it's kind of like just the big highlights, like this one or a Ghidorah dropping Godzilla from space and Godzilla somehow surviving. There's kind of some really ridiculous stuff that Godzilla like is able to do in this series. Like, whereas the last movie was so grounded, he gets like taken out by the building. Now he's literally being dropped from space, and then he's able to like drill a hole to the center of the earth for some reason. But I kind of like how it gets a little bit more ridiculous as the series goes on. It's like the old movies too. Very serious 1954, and then Godzilla is now shaking hands with Jet Jaguar and doing ridiculous tail slides. And that isn't it kind of funny how we went from this dark, super serious thing, and then he's just flying and like Godzilla vs. Ghidorah and all these other bits. I don't know. Like I feel like this movie was definitely like a loving kind of Showa era tribute, if you will.
Oh, absolutely.
This was like more Heisei, I think, than Showa. If I had to be honest, the next movie, the one after this, is more Showa, I'd say.
Speaking of which, pro number 9 is Godzilla himself. I know it's the same, technically it's the same character, but he's got a different design, and he's utilized way better than the last movie in this.
Yes, he's definitely utilized more. This is the movie that features him the most, I feel like, so far within the series. I know the next movie has bits of him too, but this is the one where we actually get to see more sides of his personality. We get
Uh-huh.
to see him like notice humans. He has tender moments. You can see him smile. Oh, well, actually, the one after this is I
Okay.
couldn't believe I couldn't believe I saw that when I first saw that in the theater. I just like that motherfucker just smiling.
Okay, so the name of this design is Doha Goji, named after Mike Doherty.
Mhm.
I very strongly prefer this design over 2014. This design too is another aspect of the fan service. Godzilla is made to look a little bit more reminiscent of the original
Mhm.
classic Godzilla.
Right.
His tail is made to be a little shorter, but it's a bit thicker and a bit more prehensile. That's in the next movie, but still. His dorsal plates are redesigned to look like the original Gojira's dorsal plates. They're not just like simple and pointed, they're more wavy and curved in this design. Um, Godzilla is also a lot more stocky, and he looks a bit more broad in the shoulders, whereas the 2014 design, his arms looked a lot skinnier. Kind of look a bit T-Rex ish. Yeah, but whereas here his
He's been
shoulders
working
are
out.
spread out and he looks more burly and stocky. And he also looks a little bit more agile.
Serizawa's got that lizard juiced.
Oh yeah, he sure do.
So is it just
Um,
me or has he been working out?
and one of the biggest thing, this dawned on me on my recent rewatch last night. Godzilla is allowed to be more expressive in this
Yes,
movie in
and
his
I
face.
appreciate that. I've heard like weird things that Toho has where he's not allowed to be like as expressive as he probably should be, which I think is a mistake. I feel like now with the
No, body
technology,
language can help.
right, body language. Like, I mean, I feel like I don't get what this deal is to like make Godzilla as emotionless as possible. Part of what made the character special over the course of the series was his ability to kind of emote with his body language, and that it's kind of what he was able to stand out for. Like adding more of those human personality traits to the monsters made him not just some generic monster. That's one of the things I love
Three
about the show
scenes
era.
three scenes that come to mind that show Godzilla is more emotive.
How
One
much he
is
hates Ghidorah.
when okay, four. So yeah, when he first shows up to fight Ghidorah in Antarctica, the look on his face, it's kind of like what goes on in Godzilla versus Gigan. Whereas there, it's more through Godzilla's body language.
Mm-hmm.
You can just still get the sense like Godzilla's thinking, not you again.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, the look on his face screams, you again.
Godzilla fucking hates Ghidorah. Like he passionately hates him more than like with Kong, he's just fucking around with him. But with Ghidorah, he fucking despises him. Like he takes sick pleasure in torturing him. Like when he goes burning mode and like he knows it's over. Like for Ghidorah, he's desperately firing these gravity beams on him, and he just you see him like he's smiling, like he's it's like a sadistic smile, and he can't just beat him. He has to humiliate him. He literally fucking eats him and like
Yeah,
blows him up. Like I was like, this motherfucker eating him now.
yeah. Scene number two. Two and three happen right after each other. Um, the second one is when Serizawa gets to his lair and the smoke clears and you see Godzilla's face. He opens up his eyes and he focuses his eyes on Serizawa, and at first he's looking really mean and really fierce, but when he recognizes Serizawa, his facial expressions they soften.
Mm-hmm.
And the last shot of Godzilla's eye, his eye is very clear, but it looks a little sad, and
Mm-hmm.
it looks also a bit grateful, like he knows that Serizawa is doing something to help him,
Mm-hmm.
but he's also a little sad that you feel a special connection and kinship between
Mm-hmm.
Serizawa and Godzilla realizes, yeah, this is the closest thing that I have to like a human liaison, and he's
Right.
about
It's like he remembers the old ancient times too, where he was kind of worshipped in that. Cause like it's the first time a human is like, because when you think about it, like that territory was built by humans. At least maybe it's like ancient special type of humans, like, I don't know, like humanoid alien type things or something like that. I
I
don't know.
presume that it's ancient humans. Yeah.
Right, something like that. There was that connection there. Like this temple was familiar. It's made by people who worshipped him, if you will. Like this is the first time a human's been there. Like Serizawa is like the only human worthy enough to enter Godzilla's lair. I mean, it's going to be his demise, but he's the only one worthy enough to like climb the temple steps and actually like make contact with him. Like there's something really immaculate and wondrous about it. But like it's a tender moment too, and you see Godzilla expressive. By the way, Godzilla is one of my next pros too, and I'm adding on
Hold on.
top of basically what you
I'm
said.
not
So
done. I'm not done. The next scene, right after Godzilla shoots his call to arms into the sky, he sees the sub, and once again, when he leans down, he looks kind of fierce. But then he recognizes the humans are like doing nothing to him, and it kind of looks like it's another troop of humans worshiping him.
mm-hmm,
They don't soften quite as much, but his features soften enough to make it look like he's acknowledging their presence,
mm-hmm.
and he's just like, I'll let you pass. Then
Mhm.
he turns around and goes to fight Ghidorah. And the fourth one, this one's really quick. It's when he's fighting Ghidorah, and Ghidorah is about to supercharge himself and go unlimited power.
Mhm.
You can see it's like an oh shit moment on Godzilla's face. He like jerks his head over and he's like, and then Ghidorah goes unlimited power.
Mhm.
And then outside of that, as a
Oh, he
giant
growls at Rodan too at the
giant
very
monster
end.
ass, huh?
At the very end of the movie, like Rodan like looks at him and he just like scowls at him, and then Rodan's like, "Whoa, we're cool, bro. Well, I didn't mean any of that. You know, I would never do anything like that for you. I'll
As
get you
Seanie
next
Boy
time,
likes to
Megatron."
say, that Rodan is like
Is Star.
Starscream.
He is Starscream in this film. Rodan's kind of just the asshole of the movie, which is what I kind
Uh,
of love about him. Um,
as a giant monster, kicking giant monster ass. God damn, is Godzilla a complete juggernaut in this movie.
mhm.
He is throwing everything that he's got into fighting King Ghidorah, and he is not fucking around. Um, he like pile drives Ghidorah through a building, fires his atomic breath, and sends him flying a couple times, whacks him with his tail off his
Mhm.
feet, grabs a
Bites his
hold
head
of
off.
Ghidorah and throws him across a fucking football field.
Mhm.
Stomps on his chest, rips off his head, strangles his neck. Godzilla fucks Ghidorah the fuck up in this movie.
Mhm. Ghidorah gets some shots in too. Although the one who kicks Godzilla's ass the most is still Mechagodzilla. That's just
Yeah, sadly. We'll talk about that later. But if you want to watch this movie for Godzilla, he so does not disappoint.
mhm.
He is a total juggernaut sight to behold in this movie. Been saying that a lot about these MonsterVerse movies, but
Right. They love. There's a lot
it's
of
really
love and respect towards his character.
fucking cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
Can I
my
add to the
next
Godzilla?
vote
Oh, okay.
is King Ghidorah. Infamously, in the past,
Nick
I'll
does
let you
not
talk
like King
about
Ghidorah.
Godzilla after this. I promise, Sean. But I really want to get into this. Infamously, in the past, many times, I have said I'm not a fan of King Ghidorah, and that is true. I do think Ghidorah is the most overused Godzilla monster. Hands down, this movie features my favorite version of King Ghidorah without a complete shadow of a doubt. This Ghidorah is a fucking beast. And I love it. Go ahead and talk about Godzilla, Sean. I got
Okay. Well, obviously, like I said, I'm going to add to what Nick said. Godzilla is amazing in this thing. Like everything from the atomic breath, which they did improve this time from the last one.
Yep.
It looks a lot better on screen. Like the color palette stands out a lot more. The beam is stronger. Granted, he's been juiced up, and also he doesn't have the Muto's EMP thing, so like there is still a continuity reason why it's more powerful this time around. The way he hits Ghidorah with it, there's a lot of cool bits with him. We get to showcase more of his personality. There's more of an arc with Godzilla's character in this thing, like how he has to kind of learn to kind of work with humans again. Whereas the last movie, it was kind of just like doing his own thing. Here, he actually has to have more of a connection with humans in order to survive. He actually has a monster ally this time in Mothra, who's there to help him. And you get kind of those tender moments with them. You get those like big, epic, bombastic moments. Like I just love the moment where he comes in, he just saves Madison too. I think that's a nice callback to Terror of Mechagodzilla, and it's kind of like one of those like cheering moments where he comes in as like the conquering hero, and he's working
Yeah.
alongside humanity. Like that's a cool epic moment. You hear like the classic Godzilla roar, which they did improve upon from the previous films. They added in like the older roars, which I think is better.
Another
Than
aspect of fan service.
another aspect of fan service, but done better. Because, like I said, I think the older roars, like I don't see a reason to have to like get rid of them. He's just, everyone makes different sounds. Like we go up and down, like in terms of like pitch, in terms of vocal cords. Like why can't he? I mean, even in the old movies, like he had different variations of his roar. So like they bring back some of the classic roars and kind of mix them in with the new ones here. Like I said, more of his personality, like more facial expressions, like the epic shit that he does. He goes burning Godzilla, which is like something I never would have expected to see. Which fuck the idiot who spoiled that thing and leaked that online before the movie came out. I wish I wouldn't have seen it because like I would have loved to have just had that surprise going into this that burning Godzilla shows up, right? Because it's not something I would have ever expected to see in this thing, but they do a different version of it. He's obviously fused with Mothra, and I also like the bit too where like he has like this EMP attack, if you will. I don't know what they, you know, what the exact thing they calls it, where he just kind of like he like blasts, and it's like an energy like wave, if you will, that
Nuclear
just
pulse.
nuclear pulse. That's it. That's what I'm looking for. But it also goes into Mothra's wings, which I think is kind of cool. There's actually a really cool statue where it's just the kind of two of them fused together, where he's like a flaming Godzilla, and then it's like got Mothra's wings, kind of like the it's like mid nuclear pulse, if you will. It looks really really cool. It's a very
I think
expensive
I've
and
seen that. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
it's very cool, but also very expensive.
Mm.
But yeah, like I said, he's able to kind of have like moments, like kind of tender moments too with humans and monsters. Like he kind of has something with Mothra, which O'Shea Jackson Jr. is just like they got a thing going on. Nick, of course, is a huge Mothzilla fan, as we all know.
Fuck you. That don't go all Justin Tang on me.
But anyways,
What's the name I've not heard in a long time?
but
Sure.
anyways, so let's go on. Let's move on. But yeah, like I remember the fan art that was I was just like, what is going on here? But yeah, so like people kind of shipped that, which was kind of weird. But anyways, so God, I lost my train of thought. Fuck you, Nick. So
Ghidorah.
anyways, like there's some cool Godzilla moments in that, and then you know he has some epic finishing moves against Ghidorah, and the humiliates him. The Titans bow to him. He just has that big epic final roar, which just really stands out. And then yeah, so like I said, he's like the next pro right there. I mean, there's another one of my pros is the epic moments, but I think I've already kind of covered those, so I'm going to highlight that pro off, and then I will add one other pro before we get into like my last three, which are the remaining three Titans. But I will say that this movie, the thing it does better than any other film so far in the MonsterVerse, is this one captures the sense of wonder and awe with the Titans better than anything else. Like this is the one where like because the previous movie had really good sense of scale. Skull Island was a little bit more fun, a little bit more action oriented in this one. This one, I feel the more mythic qualities of these creatures, and like you have those moments where people are just like looking up at these things, and there's something really beautiful and moving about them. It really captures their beauty, and also kind of like the fierceness and like the haunting nature of them all, of these really huge, ancient, mythological creatures. So I will say this one has the best sense of wonder and awe with the Titans. And then going into my next pro, well, like I said, can I just finish off the three Titans, or do you want to just go back and forth on them? Or
Nah, go ahead.
okay, so I'll just go ahead and finish these three off, and then that's pretty much in terms of my pro. So the next pro, which Nick started to get into, is King Ghidorah himself. I think this is the best. I have to agree with Nick. I think this is the best version of King Ghidorah we've ever got. It's kind of funny because like a month or two before this movie came out, we got the worst version of King Ghidorah, and that's in the animated trilogy. I hated that take on it. Some people are like, "Oh, that's like." I mean, if some people like it, that's cool and all, but like, I just absolutely just
it's too different.
It was too different. The design wasn't very good, but here, this is the best we've ever seen. He's got more personality. Each head has its own distinct personality, which has become a very popular. Yeah, it's become a very popular name. There's like each knee, and then of course Kevin, who's everyone's favorite, like the left head, who gets ripped off, and ironically, is the only thing left over. So technically, Kevin lives, if you will, and just kind of comes back to fight Godzilla in the next movie, if you will. But Ghidorah, like I said, he's got his own distinct personality. The design is fantastic. When you can see it, obviously, there's some instances where it's kind of covered up by the storms and that, but I've seen like the full sculpture of it. Like this is the best Ghidorah design you've got. You can see the sinisterness in his face. He even smiles at certain points in time. He's kind of curious too with the different personalities. The middle head's just the leader, obviously, and then the left head's kind of the curious one. Like it even knocks over a human and just kind of like playing around with it because it's been frozen for so many years. It's like, okay, I'm back into this modern world. He's got all sorts of crazy abilities too, which, you know, I think some of that, like the unlimited power was in like one of the Rebirth of Mothra movies. Ability there. He's like able to like bite down and like siphon off energy and just like launch things. The regeneration
the unlimited power ability, no, has never been featured, but siphoning energy through bites.
I thought it wasn't like he able to fire out his wingtips in the Rebirth of Mothra's movies.
No,
Okay, I just want to be sure because
The
I feel like
siphoning energy, though, that has been used before.
okay, because like I could have
No.
sworn I thought it was in one of the movies, but anyways, it's beside the point. But that one's pretty cool. The
Oh
gravity
shit.
beams look great on screen. His roar is interesting. It's very different than we've had in terms of Ghidorah before, because like Ghidorah has kind of that distinct sound, and you get a little smidge of it at one point in the movie, but it very much is its own kind of original take on the character. The head regeneration bit, like a Hydra, that caught me off guard when I saw it in the movie. That was something I wasn't really expecting because I saw the head rip. I'm like, okay, so he's gonna be like two headed, but no, when it regenerated like that, I'm like, oh shit, like how the hell is Godzilla supposed to beat
Uh-oh.
something like that? And that's the moment where we learn that Ghidorah, in fact, is an alien, which opens up a whole other can of worms that we haven't really like touched on fully just yet within the MonsterVerse, but I feel like we're gonna get to there at some point. But also, I know Nick's going to appreciate this most of all. Ghidorah is seemingly acting on his own will. There's no alien control. He is terraforming the planet in his own ways, which, like I said, is really cool. And like he's a living extinction event. Like this is the devil risen from hell coming to take claim to this planet. And then obviously you have Godzilla who has to come in to stop it. But like this thing is just he's a living
Oh,
extinction event.
man.
He is absolutely unstoppable. I think so far, and Ghidorah has like in terms of MonsterVerse, I think Ghidorah has been the best villain. I'm more of a Mechagodzilla fan personally, but I think Ghidorah's showcasing was better in this film than
Yes.
Mechagodzilla's was in the next film. It's an
Yep.
interesting design. It's not. It doesn't quite click for me like some of the other Mechagodzilla designs, but I think Ghidorah in this like is one of those instances where Ghidorah did outshine Mechagodzilla. And like I said, I'm more of a Mechagodzilla fan than Ghidorah, but I think this is an instance where Ghidorah kind of outshined Mecha G and the Mutos and pretty much everything else. And plus, like Ghidorah like fucks everyone up, fucks up Mothra, fucks up Godzilla, makes Rodan his bitch. As Starscream. So yeah, like I said, there's some cool stuff with that in that regard. So Ghidorah has like the biggest impact in terms of like MonsterVerse villains so far. Like you feel the intimidation of this thing, and opens up a whole can of worms with the whole alien thing, ancient mythos, and all that, and has a great rivalry with Godzilla. Like this is the big rivalry, as Mike Doherty pointed out. He's the Joker to Godzilla's Batman, if you will. And I'll go ahead, roll your eyes. I know you like stuff with the Joker, and you can't deny it. Um, but yeah, so like I said, Ghidorah is a villain, is the perfect antagonist for Godzilla in this thing. They both fucking hate each other. I mean, Ghidorah like is a little bit more of a coward in some instances. He's like, all right, I'm gonna fly away for right now, but now he has no choice. But like he takes sick pleasure in like hurting Godzilla, like even then, like sadistically destroying Mothra at one point, and like when he's chasing people, he smiles in that too. I just like it. We got like a huge like. There's so much personality in Ghidorah that we've never been able to see before. This is the most fully realized he's been. He's able to walk on his wings, and I think with a big budget and all that, like this is like I said, I think this is the best take because it's the first time I feel like Ghidorah has been realized to his full potential. So I love this take on King Ghidorah. I think it's the best he's ever been. Going into the next pro is Rodan. Now Rodan, I feel like in some ways kind of gets the short end of the stick of the main monsters just a little bit. He gets a really good intro with this showing right there. He does, and you even get to see him smile at one point, which is pretty cool. And he does like that barrel roll wing, and of course, like with Rodan, he could wipe cities out in an instant, like way faster than Godzilla can.
Yeah, I gotta stand up again. Ugh.
Go ahead and stand up. But like he's got some cool stuff. I like the volcano, like lava, like that comes out of his wings, if you will. I wish he did
Another
have like his
reference.
own. I did wish he had his own fire breath. I think that would have been kind of cool to have, but he obviously doesn't have it this time around. But yeah, he has a lot of cool showing moments, and he's kind of everyone's bitch in the movie. I mean, he is the Starscream, if you will, like which is kind of fun, where he's just kind of playing whatever side he can to kind of get ahead. He does have a quick fight with Mothra, if you will, and Mothra kind of stabs him, and you get kind of a funny moment too, where he gets stabbed. He's like, and then he falls, and he's just kind of like what? He's like, he sounds like a like a crow or a chicken or something like that. He just like when he fells. I thought that was kind of funny too. And then of course he like bows at the end. He's like, "Hey, we're cool, bro." Rodan just kind of cracked me up a little bit too. He's got some cool showing moments. He does leave. I feel like he does have the least important role out of the four monsters, but he did have a good showing, and he's still alive. So hopefully they'll bring him back again at some point. Because where the hell has Rodan been? That's what I want to know. And then lastly, we'll get to the final pro, which is Mothra. Now, I mean, there's instances where I really love Mothra, and instances where I'm like, yeah, I didn't really feel Mothra is needed in this thing, but I think Mothra was showcased quite well. Not my favorite design of the character, whether it's larva or the insect form. I mean, it's a very distinctly different design than I'm used to seeing. But Mothra has a lot of great scenes in it. For instance, her rebirth, if you will, looks great. I mean, you had the guy who was from Terminator 2 in there as like an older Houston Brooks, which again, nice little nod Easter egg to the other films. When she's born, the Bear McCreary score, and then of course she comes in the fashion with her God rays, which is a very beautiful looking scene. Some of the best work by Bear McCreary in the movie, visually stunning, epic. Just so many great things about that score that really kind of stand out. Yes, like I said, it's a stunning score and some epic visuals. It also there is seemingly a connect, it's been kind of hinted at in the movie. It's never fully confirmed, but I think there is a psychic connection between her and this MonsterVerse versions of the Mothra twins, which I think would have been confirmed if they ended up filming that post-credit scene. But like, I'm kind of wondering too if like the Mothra twins kind of like brought in Mothra as some sort of sign. Like, there's kind of like a weird like, I don't know, like spiritual sign, you think, Nick, of like Mothra showing up when she did, when Mark most needed some sort of guidance. It's like a special like angelic sign, if you will. Like Mothra is kind of this real angelic presence that is like a calming force when the world kind of needs it in this. And of course, she sacrificed herself for Godzilla, but not before she laid an egg, which we're still waiting on a follow up to that.
Uh-huh.
Which I think it was like supposed to be a post credit scene in this movie and then the next movie, but they never filmed it. But eventually, she will show up again because that egg is still there on standby. But yeah, like I said, I like Mothra's presence. I think her fuse, like kind of being like what's a mutually beneficial like connection with Godzilla, if you will, like kind of a symbiotic
Symbiotic
relationship.
relationship.
Right. I think that was done kind of well because you have the king and you have the queen of the monsters, if you will. Unless there's a Mrs. Godzilla out there somewhere, which would be, I would like to see a family of Godzillas at some point. Like, it'd be cool, Nick. Before I wrap this last point up, if we go like do like a flashback in the next movie to the ancient war between Godzillas and Kongs, but we see Godzilla as like a kid and we get to see like his origin story. That's something I would like to see explore. Like maybe like because the MonsterVerse has established there's other members of the Godzilla species that have existed, like Dagon. Would it be cool to see like how Godzilla like inherited that role of the king of the monsters initially as kind of Earth's protector? That'd be something. That'd be a whole other like can of worms to explore. But anyway, so like I said, her symbiotic relationship with Godzilla, how she's able to kind of save his life, I thought was a nice touch. And she has a lot of cool scenes in the movie. Like I said, her and Rodan have the least amount of impact on the plot. But I think Mothra gets a good showing, and her design is not quite my favorite, but I think it's a pretty decent update for the most part. Like the wings kind of give it away in like the face, but it is a very different design for the character. It's the one that feels the most off from the rest of like Ghidorah, Godzilla, and Rodan feel really spot on, but Mothra is a little bit different because they wanted to give her a little bit like praying mantis like pincers, if you will, to kind of fight in that. But yeah, so she gets a good showing, and there's some cool monster bits obviously throughout the movie. But yeah, I think I've said enough. I need to get my voice to rest. So you go ahead and talk, sir.
Alrighty. I don't have. Well, I want to finish up with the monsters. So going back to King Ghidorah, yes, this is my favorite version of King Ghidorah from a design standpoint. Certainly a character standpoint. Yes, what Seanie Boy said was right. I really do love that this is pretty much the first time since, not counting GMK Ghidorah or the anime Ghidorah, because I just don't want to acknowledge that one's existence. This pretty much is the first time that we've seen King Ghidorah act on his own accord since Ghidorah the three-headed monster. And I love it. His personality is so spot on and perfectly showcased. He's a very mean, sadistic, sinister piece of shit. He's a great, slimy shitbag of a villain, but he's also a very powerful villain too. This is probably also the largest version of Ghidorah, not counting again the anime version. Ghidorah stands at a whopping, I think the Heisei version is the largest because he's a perfect 150 meters in height. But I think in
I
terms
think
of
Ghidorah is like over 500 feet tall or something with the
uh,
wingspan and all that.
the wingspan adds up to his height. Yes. I do think this also might be the heaviest Ghidorah. Because Kaiser Ghidorah is 100,000 tons from Godzilla Final Wars, and I think this one is like 122,000 tons.
So the height is listed as 521 feet and a weight at 121,000 tons.
Oh, I was right. Also, like similar to what Seanie Boy was saying about Mothra, even though this is still it's a different Ghidorah, but it is still very classic Ghidorah, which I appreciate. The gravity beams are still there. The electricity absorption through bites is there. Being able to fly, used 2 prehensile tails and all 3 of his heads to fight, like using his 2 side heads, kind of just like impromptu hands. I love it. For his fighting style and his movement style, the animators took inspiration from water buffalo, snakes, which he is very snake-like. I love that about him. He is literally a giant snake, snaky ass bastard. And his fighting style also took some inspiration.
Why did it have to be snakes?
Some of his fighting style is similar to Komodo dragons, which they incorporated to give him some overlap with Godzilla. And his fighting style is also a bit similar to eagles, which Rodan is also very similar to how an eagle fights as well. Specifically, when Ghidorah grapples Godzilla and takes him into the sky, that is how golden eagles kill goats. They grab them with their claws, haul them up into the sky, and they drop them to kill them so they can eat them. So I do appreciate that even though that Ghidorah is still an alien, he's been here for so long that he's considered to be part of the fossil record, and he's part of humanity's history. So you get the sense that Ghidorah, even though he's been frozen for so long, he still took influences from his surroundings and adopted other forms of combat to meet his own needs, which I love. So I love Ghidorah in this movie. It's hands down my favorite version of Ghidorah. Pro number 11 is specifically just the rest of the monsters showcased. Like the other Titans, like Behemoth and Methuselah and Scylla and all the other monsters, they all have really cool designs. I wish we could have seen a little bit more of them, but I definitely now do appreciate what we have in the movie because all of that was almost cut just purely for budgetary reasons. So, man, what? Never mind.
It's a lot of money. So,
but yeah, I may as well talk about Rodan and Mothra. I love Rodan's design. I kind of prefer aspects of both the Heisei Rodan and the Final Wars Rodan, but this version of Rodan is very damn awesome. I appreciate that Rodan is not a giant pterodactyl, at least not seemingly. He's more like a giant bird, like a giant. I listened him to Victoria last night. He's like a cross between a giant vulture, eagle, and I guess not turkey, but I'll say a crow. Yeah, he has elements of being very crow-like, in my opinion. But specifically, like, yeah, he's like an eagle in the body, but he's more like a vulture in his beak and head. But I love it. I love how his it's like his outer skin is like solidified lava. That being, I think, kind of a dual reference to the fact that the original Rodan was born inside a volcano, but it's also a reference to Fire Rodan from Mechagodzilla 2. Another aspect of the fan service. I love
and
it.
even like Mike Doherty said that he got really sad at the end of Rodan when he fell in the volcano, so he immediately just kind of like this is kind of his way to kind of change that ending by having Rodan literally come out of a volcano.
Yeah, that's cool. Love that. I do think that he probably. Well, I'll save that for later. I'll just say quickly. He probably is the most underused monster, or at least the most poorly used. But I'll save that for a little later. And of course, the last monster is Mothra. I really like her redesign. It's not my favorite, but for what this movie is doing, I really dig it. Obviously has a lot of very moth-like elements to her, especially with her larval stage. Kind of looks like literally a giant moth larva, just with talons and a mouth that spits silk. I love that not only does the larva spit silk, but the imago stage also spits silk. I always kind of wondered, like, why is that just a larval exclusive weapon? I would have
You,
liked Mothra being able to shoot silk too.
I think you have a good point there. Like, you don't really like see that showcase. Well, obviously, Mothra kind of had to get to her larva form that we've
I
showcased
get
before.
that, but that still could be a useful ability as
Right,
a
right.
But anyway, what I love about her design is not only do they incorporate very moth-like elements to her, but they do include some um other insect-like influences. I like to call her kind of like a mix between a moth, a mosquito, a wasp, and a praying mantis, specifically with her talons that she uses to swipe Rodan. Obviously, she stings Rodan, which is like a wasp stinger. And because she has a really small body but huge wings, and so like she's really agile in the sky, that looks very mosquito-esque to me. So I appreciate the animators and filmmakers drawing inspiration from real life animals to make this monster seem alien and monstrous, but also a little bit familiar. Same goes for Rodan. Um, and of course, for Rodan's fighting style, he's pretty much just a giant eagle, which I love. Um, yeah, all the monsters are great. They add to the movie's lore. They have some really good scenes to showcase them off. Yeah, Rodan's chase scene with the planes is a really damn good action scene. So I actually will be taking away one of my pros only because it can be wrapped up with another one, just because it's so minor. So pro number 12 is the amazing monster action. I don't think so. I was gonna say that Godzilla versus King Ghidorah at the very end is one of my favorite monster fights. I do somewhat think that, but I just think the movie overall has some of my favorite collective monster action of the entire kaiju genre. It's big, it's bombastic, it's very hard hitting, it's
Mm.
very vicious and visceral and animalistic. There's lots of shit going on screen. There's It's pretty brutal too.
It's some
Um,
great action, Nick, and like I said, I mean, and at the time I was like, man, this is really, really good. What are they gonna do with the next movie? And then the next movie, I think, actually did have better action sequences. But like, I mean, this movie's still really good, but I think the next movie just kind of ups the ante even further and just was a little bit more exciting in terms of the fights. But I mean, this one's quite good. I mean, Mike Doherty is more of like he's not really an action movie director. But he's definitely more like I don't know, like capturing those like awe-inspiring, like big epic shots. I think those awe-inspiring visuals in that for sure.
Speaking of which, pro number God damn
13,
it. Huh?
13.
13, thank you. Brain fart there. 13 is the amazing epic moments. I'm just gonna list off all of my favorite scenes.
Be my guest, sir. I feel like I've already mentioned most of them, but
Godzilla's intimidation scene with his dorsal plates flickering. That's a very creepy visual.
right. You know what? Add that to my pros of Godzilla as well. I didn't mention that, I think, with the intimidation display. Like, I I felt like I talked about it, but I don't think I did.
That
But
is Meadows' favorite scene in the whole movie because she told me when she was in the theater, she actually legitimately got goosebumps.
Mhm.
She was very creeped out. When Godzilla breaches the ice in Antarctica with Bear McCreary's awesome fucking music. Oh,
I so desperately wanted Bear McCreary to do GVK and have like a kind of like a maybe call the track like New Rivals, and like Godzilla arrives to that music and they have the stare down with Kong. I wanted that so badly to be like the when they went. But anyways, that's just me just like loving the Bear McCreary score so much.
Rodan's birth and subsequent chase of the planes. It's great. Ghidorah's alpha roar to the rest of the Titans on top of the volcano. It's very, very ominous and it's like a great, oh, we're fucked moment. Sarazawa's sacrifice. Godzilla's call to arms. Godzilla arriving to fight Ghidorah. Long live the king. Fire Godzilla's appearance. And of course, Godzilla's roar to the skies, declaring himself as the king of the monsters. God damn, this movie is so fucking epic. I absolutely love it. And the final pro that I have for this film is the amazing special effects. I know lots of people have a complaint that the weather messes with the effects. I don't care. This is tied with Godzilla vs. Kong as the best CGI of the entire Godzilla franchise.
Right, because you're not counting Skull Island because that's primarily a Kong film.
That one's very close behind.
I feel like Skull Island had slightly better effects. And, well, I think because like they perfected CGI in apes, and also I think too the weather effects.
Yeah.
The weather effects kind of hold some bits back at times. But for the most part,
I see what you're saying, but I still don't care. This for me is where it's at. All the CGI is very well detailed, very well animated. The motion capture for all of Ghidorah's heads are pitch perfect. Godzilla's facial expressions are pitch perfect. The action is very well animated, very well choreographed. It's crisp and clean, in my opinion. It's well shot. It's very vibrant and colorful. There's none of that dull, dreary Terminator Salvation bullshit here, in my opinion. I will give one brief bone. Yes, it's kind of a shame that we never get a completely full look at Ghidorah's full body, like where there's no wind and snow or no rain and clouds or no rain or smoke.
the best is the volcano.
The volcano makes up for that, though. That's why I don't really have a problem, because that's the clearest image. Not to mention, too, you can still fill in the rest of what Ghidorah looks like in your head. It's not hiding a monster because they're ashamed of it. I get the sense that they keep him enshrouded in like smoke and darkness to make him look more intimidating. So that works for me in that aspect. So I don't really have much of an opinion regarding that, but I can see somebody having an issue with it. So I'll give them a bone for that. It doesn't bother me, though. So before you get to your cons, I want to talk about my two nitpicks. Both are very minor. One, Mothra and Rodan are a bit underused. I will acknowledge that they could have had a little bit more screen time.
I'd agree with that.
Their fight, I do like it a lot still. It's two flying monsters going at each other in their element, so I really like that. I like Mothra's finishing move against Rodan, kind of makes him her bitch.
Rodan's everyone's bitch in this movie.
That's true. Yeah, he is, but especially for Mothra, because she literally sticks it to him.
Oh, yeah.
But I will admit, yeah, they could have had a little bit more screen time. But especially with Mothra, I was initially going to say that I think she's the weakest monster. But with them developing her symbiotic relationship to Godzilla, I think that makes up for her lack of screen time because
Hmm.
when she's on screen, she really matters to the plot and to Godzilla in
Hmm.
defeating Ghidorah. So I don't mind it. But
Right.
I will admit, yes, they could have been used a bit more. And this part, it's the closest that comes to a full con. Dr. Emma's motivations are a bit cliche and preachy. It's nothing new. She wants to reactivate the monsters to save the world because humanity is a cancer to the world. It's nothing new. It
She should
feels
have just
so
married Thanos.
it feels so recycled from specifically for me because this is what it really reminded me of at the time and still to this day. Resident Evil the final chapter and Aquaman.
Ugh.
And Aquaman. It's just we got to wipe out a good chunk of the world to save the world from themselves. It's nothing new, it's cliche, a bit overused and kind of preachy. I could kind of do without it. And it makes Dr. Russell look kind of like a crazy person.
She is a
But,
crazy person.
yeah, she kind of. But I don't mind it as much. Like the reason why it's not a full on con is because I do feel like she does own up to her mistake. She realizes that what she's doing is wrong and she tries to make up for what she's done. So that kind of wins my favor over. And she does give a really good final line, long live the king. So it's almost a con. It's like a hair's breadth away, but I do feel she redeems herself in the end, so I don't mind it as much. But those are my only two nitpicks.
Okay.
How
Well,
many
I
cons
mean,
you got?
okay. Well, it's kind of feel like they're nitpicks cons, but it's not too many. But so kind of we're saying like the weather stuff. I think the movie looks a little bit muddled at times. I think some of the storms of that make it kind of hard to make out some of the fights. Like Rodan and Mothra's fight, there's some cool moments in there, but it's not a very crystal clear fight to see what's kind of happening because some of the rain effects are kind of covering it up. There's some shots of Ghidorah, like when he's chasing the Argo and then Godzilla kind of leaps out of the water and grabs it. It's like I would have liked more of like kind of a wider scale thing. They kind of have a fight in the water, and it's a little hard to kind of make out what's happening a little bit in that scene. But again, it is kind of a water fight, and those are a little tricky to do unless you're, of course, Aquaman and you're doing that underwater. So, like I said, a few shots and some of the storms and that they kind of cover some of the beautiful monster designs. Like I could have done without some of it. Like I didn't. I think at times it kind of gets a little excessive. Another one is like the humor doesn't always land. Some of the jokes just aren't always quite funny. Emma Russell, like Vera Farmiga is a good actress, but like it's kind of
Oh
like when
yeah,
you're,
absolutely. One more thing too. Vera Farmiga does a great job playing her.
it's
She's
just
acting her
her,
ass off,
right,
absolutely. It's just her motivations are nothing special and she's kind of nuts.
right. There's something kind of about that, like the motivation. Like, I've kind of seen this stuff before with her and her redemption. I don't know. It's kind of like, yeah, it just it didn't really hit the emotional beats I think they were looking for, but it is what it is, I suppose. Another one. This is going to involve Mark Russell. And I think you may understand where I come from. He is a bit of a Gary Stu, which is like a Mary Sue, but for a guy, he literally does everything. Oh, we got a problem. Well, here comes Mark. He's going to do it. He knows more than the military. Hey, we can't open the hangar doors. We're the trained military people, but don't worry. Here comes Mark Russell to do it. He just pushes a button and he solves literally every problem. Oh, hey, like what are they doing here? Oh, it's a diversion. It's all this thing. It's this. It's that. It's this. It's that. I'm like, how does Mark know literally everything? Like, you don't need any of the other
Okay,
characters.
I see what you're saying. I never thought about that before, but
It's kind of something that's like bothered me upon like rewatching. I'm like, my God, there's literally like this guy literally does everything. Like, it kind of like I don't know, like makes everyone else feel kind of lesser. I mean, there could be instances like where like, oh here, lower your guns down. Okay, that's one instance, animal behavior. I get that bit, but the military bit where he knows more strategy than them, these are trained professionals. I mean, come on now. Or the part where he's kind of buckled in, he's like, we can't open the hangar doors. He unbuckles, like, where is it? Let me solve this problem because I'm Mark. I understand the animal behavioral things, but like there comes a point where I'm like, this guy is literally doing everything. In some instances, I understand the animal behavior things. He knows the orca because he helped design it. I get that. But there's comes a point where I'm like, let the other characters have roles too, Mark. You don't have to solve every fucking thing. And that just kind of gets on my nerves a bit. I mean, people complain about Mary Stu or Mary Sue's. This is the male version of that, a Gary Stu, where he literally does everything. And it just kind of gets on my nerves a little bit past a certain point. Some things, like I said, I understand, but other points is like it's a bit much. Like I get he's supposed to be like the hero, but you don't have to make him do everything the plot needs. Like anytime the plot needs something, here comes good old Mark to solve it. So like that's something that just kind of irks me upon like watching the movie. And then another one I have, and this is as of right now, maybe they'll resolve it later on, is some lingering plot threads, and mostly having to do with Alan Jonah. We still don't know who like much about. I mean, we have little hints about him in this and like one of the graphic novels, but I mean, after this movie, like him and his organization are just never acknowledged again. We don't get a maybe we'll get it in Godzilla and Kong, which I'm hoping for, but it just feels like everything about him and all this stuff with his mission in that it just feels kind of brushed aside. It's just a lingering plot thread. Like he sold the Ghidorah skull. Apparently there's two or something. I don't know how it works in GBK. There's I think because they filmed the movies back to like simultaneously a little bit, things kind of got changed and shuffled around a little bit, but I don't know. It's just something that just kind of bothers me that we don't have any resolution to it. Or it's kind of just like how the MCU left off like the Incredible Hulk for like a decade or two before finally following it up in Nick's favorite show, She-Hulk. Um, but yeah. Oh, somebody asked a question right there.
No, just ignore that. Just ignore those.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, Tavia, you have to go back and watch it, but like we really like King Ghidorah in this thing. Yeah, King Ghidorah's skull just becomes like
You'll see when we talk about Skull Island
or Godzilla vs. Kong. But yeah, like I said, that's something that kind of irks me a little bit. But I mean, just kind of those little nitpicks here. Like I said, maybe Rodan and Mothra could have been utilized a little bit more because Rodan feels kind of the least important of the monsters. I think when I talked to Ryan once, he's like, you could legitimately cut Rodan out of the movie, and you really wouldn't miss much in terms of plot. You'd still get like the whole Ghidorah summoning all the different Titans. But I mean, it's still cool to have Rodan because like in the movie. Like I said, Mothra has a more important role. Rodan is kind of just everyone's bitch. But he's that's just kind of him. He plays bitch monster. And also like when they summoned all the other Titans, those Titans didn't really like get much to do. That's kind of another nitpick. But again, there's already so many monsters in this thing. I'm okay with it. But yeah, so like I said, those are my nitpicks. My only real like I said, big cons were I think it looks kind of muddled at times. And you know, the whole thing with Mark literally solving every problem to the point where I was like, I mean, I start to grow. I'm like, I mean, the movie, like, I still really love the movie. But it doesn't like hold as much power over me as it did, back then. I still really enjoy it, but there's like upon rewatching bits, like there's some things that haven't really like stood the test of time. So, but like I said, the human element for the most part is pretty fine. Not the best cast I think we have in the MonsterVerse. I think Skull Island has the best batch of human characters that we've seen so far, with the most interesting and like stories and all that too. Mark, like I said, I understand. Like as you brought up earlier with his like Charles Chandler does a good job acting. He's charismatic and can carry the movie. But just some things with this character, I'm like, why doesn't he blame the Mutos at all? Like, and I think what it would have made it better with, I guess this is one other kind of nitpick in that opening scene. If we actually saw Godzilla like destroy his house, I think that would have made it a little bit more impactful. Kind of like how we had the Janjira incident in the previous film where we saw like Joe lock his wife in and we saw the factory get down. We didn't quite see the Mutos, but we found out years later that they were kind of underground affecting it. I think it would have been better if we kind of like almost did a Batman versus Superman, if you will. Which I think the best part of that movie like is maybe like the opening 10 minutes, or at least up there. I think the opening 10 minutes kind of takes the criticism of Man of Steel and just kind of does something with it. You really puts you in the perspective of that. And I think it's an impactful scene. But I think if you did something like that with King of the Monsters, where we're in there, like it's them and their family trying to escape their homes, and then you just see Godzilla like in the fight, like squash like the home, and then he's just panicking, and then he like finds his son under the rubble in that. I think that would have made it a little bit more impactful, if you will. I think that would have helped sell that anger and retaliation he has towards Godzilla. Because like I said, we're kind of like, we get little hints of it, but we don't really see it. And I think if we visually saw that, it would have made that rivalry had a little bit more impactful. Kind of like when the first Kiryu film, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, when Akani's in the Maser tanks, if you will, she's trying to fight Godzilla, and then you see her watch like her friends in that get destroyed, and she feels responsible for it. That actually, like, I think did a better job showcasing her resentment and kind of guilt than something like this. Because, like I said, Godzilla only shows up to fight the Mutos. It's not like he actively sought to squash the Russell's home, right? So, like,
Yeah,
that's the reason he's there. So, but like I said, I think a few tweaks, we'd really have, like, we're almost there in terms of peak Godzilla stuff. I mean, the fight scenes are pretty solid, not the best they can be, because I do think the next film does them even better, which I think retroactively makes these ones not as good, but still pretty solid overall. So, like, I think, like I said, take the best elements of each of the 4 MonsterVerse films so far, and we're right there at that 10 out of 10, like, Godzilla monster movie. We're
well,
almost there, Nick. We're almost there.
let's wrap up our thoughts on Godzilla King of the Monsters. Go ahead, Sean.
I really love Godzilla King of the Monsters. I mean, look what I have right here. You see this? I got posters here. I got this. I even got my ass tattooed. Just kidding. But yeah, like I said, there's so many epic, awesome, like, wow moments within this movie that just, like I said, there's so many, like, emotional responses I have to a lot of, like, goes on here. I mean, this is my personal favorite within the MonsterVerse. I will admit that. There are a few things that definitely could have done better. And Tevya, I will say this is a lot better than the anime trilogy, without question.
Well, let's not really answer those.
Right. I'll answer questions when you're giving your stuff, like, via comment section. But
Okay,
there's a lot of really great stuff in this thing. I mean, the monsters get great showings. Godzilla, I think, has his best showing so far in the MonsterVerse in this one. Like I said, I like the more emotional beats that are sprinkled throughout it. There's a lot of love clearly put on screen. The score is great. It ends on one of the most epic final shots. Like I said, I think, like I said, in terms of final shots, this one has, like, just the way it kind of ends. I think it ends the strongest of the 4 films so far, because 2014 is a little abrupt. Kong Skull Island also feels a little bit abrupt. This one just kind of, like, you're allowed to kind of let the moment play out a little bit. There's that buildup, but, like, moments are allowed to breathe in this one. I think that makes it a little bit more impactful. And again, that final epic shot right there is like a Godzilla shot. That's my favorite. It's my favorite final shot in a Godzilla film. Yes, obviously there's credits and all that afterwards, but, like, when the main story ends, basically, like, it is my favorite final shot in a Godzilla film. The only one I think comes close is Terror of Mechagodzilla, because that's really kind of the end of an era of movies. It's kind of a beautiful thing. But even the post-credit scene, like, there's some cool stuff in there too. But yeah, like I said, I really love Godzilla King of the Monsters. This is a movie clearly made by people who love Godzilla. It's kind of the Godzilla film I always wanted to see on the big screen, with a lot of money thrown at it. Very expensive stuff. So it's kind of like a childhood, like, dream kind of come to life, if you will. Yeah, some things could have been better, but I still really enjoy it, and I had a tremendous time. I saw it multiple times in theaters, and yeah, it doesn't quite have the same impact it had on me as maybe it did a few years ago, like when I rewatched it today, but I still really enjoyed the film. So there you go.
Well, you notice that I didn't talk about my cons. That's because I have none. I have nothing wrong with this movie. The 2 nitpicks that I have, they're just things that I'm fine with the way that they are, but I do think they could have been improved. They affect my enjoyment of the movie not in the slightest. This is a fucking masterpiece in my eyes. Hands down my favorite MonsterVerse movie, just like Seanie Boy, of course. And it is now tied with Godzilla Final Wars as my number 1 favorite Godzilla movie. This is a very special film. Like what Seanie Boy was saying, this is the Godzilla movie that I have wanted to see on the big screen in theaters with hundreds of millions of dollars thrown at it all my life. And I finally have it. I am on board 100,000% with this movie and everything that it does. I am just sold. This is a Godzilla movie made by Godzilla fans for Godzilla fans. And anybody who doesn't like this movie, You don't exist to me. So I love this movie so much that I am going to invent a brand new score for my channel. I technically have used it before, but I am now trademarking this. I am giving it a definitive solid gold 10 out of 10. It's more than a 10 out of 10. It's like, a standard 10 out of 10 for a movie I really love and like bland, boring font. Just imagine a title credit of like big embroiled gold letters, solid gold 10 out of 10. That is what I rate this movie. Every time I watch it, I love it more and more. Shit you not. With all that being said, Shoddy Boy, got anything to plug?
I guess should I give my rating?
Oh, go ahead.
Now, I know you gave it a 10 out of 10, and I really, really love this movie. But I think, like I said, there's some things that are really kind of holding it back for me. And like I said, I mean, I give very few 10 out of 10 ratings, as you've kind of seen. Like, there's some really awesome, like, movies I've given. Obviously, Jaws is a 10 out of 10 movie for me. But there's, like, other films. Like, Commando was just, like, a ridiculous 10 out of 10 for me. Like, I mean, I'm more entertained by that than, like, most movies in history. And even RoboCop, because, like, RoboCop's just so fucking good. And this one's really, really fucking good too. I can't see myself giving it a 10 out of 10 though, because like I said, I do think there's things that are holding it back. I do think there's other things that the other movies do better than it. I think if you take the best moments, like I said, out of each film and just kind of put it into one, then we get that 10 out of 10 movie. But I don't think we're quite there yet. So I gave 2014 an 8 out of 10. And like I said, I think 2014 might be the weakest overall in the MonsterVerse in some instances. And if I give this one, I got like it's in the 9 range, but I can't quite give it a 9 out of. I can't give it a 10 out of 10. I don't want to give it a 9, so I'm going to do something. I'm going to go 9.25 out of 10 because I can't quite give 9.5. Because like I said, but like I don't want to give it 9 because I think it's a little more than that. So I think a 9.25 out of 10. I know it's a weird like 9.25 out of 10. But like I said, my nitpicks and a few things that just kind of hold it back. Maybe some of the human elements like hold some of it back. And like I said, the human element, I do want everything to shine in this, but I just don't think it's quite reached there. And again, I still love this movie. I got a big stand, got this on Blu-ray, got this, got that. I saw it multiple times in theaters. I love the shit out of it, but it's not quite a 10 out of 10. And again, I if I'm thinking like when I think 10 out of 10, I gotta try and think favorite movies of all time, like right at the top of the list, you know.
Jaws, Batman, Predator.
Yeah, Back to the Future.
Yeah, I remember.
Yes. So like I said, it's a really great movie. I love the shit out of it, and I really enjoyed rewatching it again. And it's my favorite in the MonsterVerse so far. But it needs to do a few things differently to kind of reach that 10 out of 10. I'm hoping that the next film does that. I want the 10 out of 10, Nick. I'm craving it. I want something. I want Wingard to really surprise me. Now he's kind of learned a little bit making the last one, and I've heard the production on the newest movie has gone incredibly smooth. No major reshoots, none of that. Like it's probably the smoothest production. It's the smoothest production they've had, and apparently the story's stronger this time around, as some of the cast have said. And now that they kind of know more what they're doing, where they want to go with it, and like what they could get away with, they're really going to push the envelope in the next one. So I'm really, really hoping that's the case. I want the next movie to be the best, don't you? You want it to be better than these ones. You want improvement. You want just to be wowed. That's what I'm looking for in the next one too. But I really enjoyed this thing. Have a great time with it. Obviously, like I said, got that thing right there and figures and all that. Like to me, like I said, it's the Godzilla film I always wanted to see. So 9.25 out of 10 for me. I think this is a fantastic Godzilla film. Love the shit out of it and had a great time.
Post your comments down below and let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share us with your friends. Look forward to next week when we tackle the finale not the finale, but the final movie for the moment in the MonsterVerse. When me and maybe Seanie Boy, or
Hopefully we'll see.
hopefully Seanie Boy, we'll be tackling the rematch that many people have been wanting to see for decades when Seanie Boy and I review Godzilla versus Kong. Look forward, look forward to that. And as always, go out and just watch your favorite Godzilla movies. Enjoy
Fuck
your day.
yes, motherfuckers. Watch Godzilla. Like, just watch something. Also, Tevye, thanks for leaving all those glorious comments, sir. I know you have it a lot, so I just wanted to kind of answer a few. Like I said, I hope I got things out of the way. But yeah, like I said, a lot of epic moments in there. And thanks for having me on, Nick. I mean, we talked for a good 2.5 hours long. We talked longer than the length of the entire movie. So
Yep.
that just goes to show we were excited. Like, this is a really good discussion about it. About something we both really love. So, and of course, like I said, so much fandomism in it. I think 2 out of the cast. I think I wanted to bring this up. I didn't like bring it up early, but O'Shea Jackson Jr. I think was the biggest Godzilla fan in the cast because like he's the only one who did the DVD commentary. If you notice that too, and he also pitched doing like a G Team TV series, like an animated one, and kind of incorporating other Toho monsters.
Oh,
So
that'd be cool. You
yeah,
gotta
so
be fucking kidding.
right.
And of
So
course, we will see all you guys in the next video.
all right.